Hello and welcome to episode 14 of Roadkill Entertainment's Video Village podcast. I am Jay Byrne, creator of Roadkill Entertainment, co-creator of Roadkill Entertainment, and I'm sitting here with my buddy,
Michael Welch.
All right. And as anybody who's been listening to this podcast relatively regularly, I know there's a couple of you out there, we're kind of getting into this thing now where I think we're going to try anyway. I think Mike's going to be here for at least every month episode. I'm going to try to get Mike here. So
I dig it.
Mike's my co-host now, you know. I finally have a co-host, which helps. I will do quick before we get into our subject matter. Our subject today is going to be zombies in movies and TV, and you know, we'll kind of cover the gamut there as much as we possibly can. I am just, for the few of you out there, because I know there's a couple people that listen to the podcast, or at least one that mentioned it, that said they liked the like the Blu-ray reviews and stuff like that. And since we've been doing it like this, I haven't really had a chance to do any of those. So I'll just a couple off the top of my head that I picked up that are good Blu-rays. I can say I just got Pumpkinhead from Scream Factory, and that looks freaking great. Pumpkinhead looks awesome. Like the transfer looks good. Like, I know Scream Factory pretty much just puts out what they get from the studios. There's a couple titles that Scream Factory have put out where they've actually like done the transfer themselves, but most of the time for Scream Factory, they just get a master from the studio and either clean it up a little bit or put it out the way they have it. So a lot of people, you can't lay all the credit on them. You can't say like, oh, they did an amazing transfer, because it's just MGM did a pretty good transfer of Pumpkinhead at some point in time, right? But it's awesome. It's really cool. There's a transfer looks great, and that movie really, like, I don't know, I found that movie to be I'm sure you're familiar with Pumpkinhead, right?
Absolutely,
of course.
I love Pumpkinhead.
All right. I found that movie to be awesome, like with the lights off on a big screen and the surround sound. Like, that was like a cinematic experience. Like the way it's shot with all the different colored gels and everything, it just looks fucking great. Like when I was watching, I'm like, oh, this kind of warrants a Blu-ray. Like, you know what I mean? This is a movie that looks good for Blu-ray, you know? But the transfer is cool. There's tons of bonus features on there. There's it's like a 45-minute long or an hour. It's close. It's at least 45 minutes or something like that. On the making of Pumpkinhead. Oh. There's a hour-long documentary with the guys who worked with Stan Winston, like his team, like basically reminiscing about Stan Winston for like an hour. And it's a really good documentary, actually. It was pretty entertaining. I actually found that more interesting than the documentary in The Making of Pumpkinhead, because The Making of Pumpkinhead was kind of standard fare. There wasn't a lot of stories to tell. It was just kind of, yeah, we did this, we did that. It was kind of flat. But it was cool to hear the guys talk about what it was like to work with Stan Winston for all those years and stuff. So that disc is great. So I did Scream Factory, that one. Basically, it's a bunch of Scream Factories that I can remember off the top of my head that I bought. Another movie, which actually you haven't seen yet, but I just actually gave you my spare copy. Honestly, did give Mike my spare copy on this one. This isn't code for anything scary. Like, I had another copy of the movie. Why? I had another copy of the movie. I just ended up with one somehow.
You're an amazing collector.
Because I'm an amazing collector. Without Warning is a movie. Now, you've never seen the movie, right? Okay, it's actually really cool. And I think you would dig it because it's the transfer is pretty decent on it, actually. You can tell it's a movie that never really got a home video release, so wherever they got the transfer from, like, I think it's just another one of those MGM just did it and they had it and they got it, and it's very watchable. It looks fine to me. I didn't think there was anything wrong with the transfer. But it's got Martin Landau in it. Friggin' that guy Cameron Mitchell's in it at the beginning. I don't know if you're familiar with him from like the 80s. Another guy named Jack Palance is in it as well. Random actors in this movie. Like, it's the guy from NYPD Blue, Caruso.
Oh, David Caruso?
He's in it. He's young as hell in the movie.
Wow.
And it starts off as a I'll try not to give too much of it away because you haven't watched it yet, but just the gist of it. It starts off as a slasher film. Sort of. But there's this alien subdrop to it where there's these alien creatures like attacking people. And then you end up with these two main characters who are pretty much trying to escape the aliens, and they end up interacting with the townspeople. And then Martin Landau plays like this crazy like vet that they meet up with. And the whole movie, it's a very moody kind of, I wouldn't call it slow burn, but because it's by today's standards of slow burn, it moves quicker than that. But like, it has a really creepy, moody atmosphere. The alien looks kind of ridiculous. The alien effects are kind of funny almost, but it's okay. Like when you're watching the movie, it doesn't take you out of the movie. It's like, because the actors are pretty good. And it just gets moody and creepy, and they're trying to get away from these aliens, and some of the people in the town think they might be aliens as well. It's very like kind of Invasion of the Body Snatchers-esque in a way. It's not like that, but it's that style of movie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just found it a very enjoyable movie. Like, and I had seen the poster art for that as a kid growing up a million times on different things. But there never was a VHS release even when we were growing up. That's one of those movies that, like, this is literally the first time this movie's ever been available in the United States on home video format, because I don't think there was even a VHS release of that. So it's a good movie though, so it's worth checking out. There's some great bonus features on there. They actually, except aside from some of the older actors that are dead, obviously, but they located like the main cast and they talked to them all, and it's kind of interesting to hear the stories of these people because you've never seen most of these people in anything else. So it's kind of interesting to hear their take on it. You know what I mean? But I know that's a great release. Definitely worth getting if you're into kind of like sci-fi horror kind of paranoid stories. Don't go into it thinking it's a slasher film, because if you do, you're gonna be like, okay, it's not really a slasher film. Even though they kind of advertise it as a slasher film, it's not a slasher film. It's a alien thriller, basically. Oh, excuse me, sorry. So that, let's see, what else did I get? I got Scanners on Blu-ray as well, and the Criterion version of Scanners that came out. There's a bit of controversy floating around about that one right now because of the transfer on it, although I thought the transfer looks great. It's a David Cronenberg approved transfer. He approved it, but he did go back and recolor time certain sections of the movie. So then I use the term because I'm kind of becoming one, but the net nerds, you know what I mean, basically like are up in friggin' arms over the fact that, oh my god, I can't believe this scene has a green tint now instead of it looking but honestly, I think the transfer looks fine, and it looks great, and it fits the movie. He gave it more of like a sci-fi look. Like, it's the best way I can describe it. And I found the movie, to be honest with you, like growing up, Scanners to me I always found kind of boring. Like, but I actually found that I appreciated the movie more. I even went back and watched it again. Like, after I watched it, I'm like, I kind of want to watch that movie again. And I watched it again, and it kind of grew on me a little more. It's very simple, but like, I don't know, just a weird paranoid, like Cronenberg-y type thriller. He's made better movies, definitely. It's not, I wouldn't go as far to say Scanners is one of his best movies by any means, but it's quite entertaining, I think. And the Criterion release of it's awesome. The transfer is really good. Oh, well, I mean, debatably good, depending on what camp you lie in. I thought it was fine. It looked gorgeous to me. And there's quite a few bonus features. There was like an interview with David Cronenberg and some of the people that shot the movie and stuff like that. I find that Criterion does do good special editions, but I sometimes find, and I don't know if you feel this way or not, that their bonus features are foofy sometimes. That's the best way to describe it. Some of their like documentary and their interview stuff that they put on there is so serious and so technical that there are certain movies that they put out that are almost like genre exploitation movies that, like, there should be a more lighthearted approach to the interview structure for the documentaries, and they're so serious. You know what I mean?
It's like they have such a high reputation in the community that it's like they feel they have to be really serious and almost like a professor to film fans.
Right.
And like sometimes they put movies out and I go, it's great that they're putting this out, but why is Criterion putting this out?
Criterion, and I actually don't even have this. I was never that big of a fan of the movie, but Criterion put out Armageddon.
See, yeah.
They put friggin' Armageddon out, for Christ's sake. Actually, they put that movie The Rock out. The other Michael Bay,
right.
Which I couldn't stand that movie after I finally watched. I'm like, Criterion put this movie out? Why? Like, and they take them like from like a film historian standpoint. That's the way they kind of come at everything. So it's like, yeah, okay. But yeah, I mean, but the transfer is good. There's definitely some good bonus features on there. And there's a commentary on there and everything. So that's definitely worth it. Let me see if I can think of one or two more that I did. I buy so many friggin' movies that like I kind of forget what I have after a while. there's something I just recently watched that. Oh God, yeah, I want to talk about this because this is friggin' awesome. Prom Night. I just picked up the Synapse release of Prom Night that was completely restored from the original negative, which is friggin' awesome because Prom Night's been kind of one of those. I wouldn't call it lost because it's always been available, but there's always been kind of like crappy home video versions of Prom Night. Yeah. And I almost feel like Prom Night kind of deserved a little bit better attention. It's always treated like the bastard stepchild of like the slasher genre. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Like the $5.99 movie.
Yeah, it was never treated with respect, whereas like Halloween got respect. I mean, Terror Train did eventually get some respect with Scream Factory's release, but like even Terror Train was released by its original company on DVD, so you could get a decent widescreen version of the movie. It wasn't like no bargain bin version of the movie. But this friggin' transfer is awesome, and like Don May Jr., the guy who runs Synapse, I've talked to him a few times on Facebook. I've asked him technical questions and stuff. I don't know if he knows who the hell I am, but like he's very forthcoming. He'll answer questions, and he seems like a really cool guy. I don't know. Have you ever met him? I've never met him.
Yeah, I met him at a convention, and he is a very good guy.
Is he?
And his partner too.
Jerry Chandler.
Yeah, Jerry Chandler.
I talked to him on the phone because he called me about Hometown. I mean, they didn't do anything with Hometown, but he told me how much he liked the poster art for Hometown. Yeah. Fucking awesome disc right across the board. Like if you're a fan of the movie in any way, shape, or form, they did a new like kind of like a repurposed like 5.1 surround mix for the movie, and like usually those mixes are kind of hokey, they're not very well done, but for friggin' Prom Night, and it's great. The friggin' disco, the dance sequences sound amazing. Like there's like tons of bass in them. I mean, like it's really good. I'm like, wow, this is awesome. They put the there's a documentary, like a 40-minute documentary on the making, which is pretty interesting actually. There's when the movie aired on TV, there was the slew of extra scenes that were put like a TV version, kind of like Halloween 2. They put all the scenes from the TV because they found it on the negative when they were going through, so they put all the TV scenes on there. There's a 25-minute section of just outtakes, like of just extra stuff from the negative, which is really weird because it's stuff like the kills and stuff like that. The people lying there like with their makeup on, and then they kind of get up, and there's extra outtakes of the dancing at the prom, like them waiting to dance, and then they'll start dancing. And so it's weird as shit, but like it's kind of fascinating. I will admit I kind of forwarded through a lot of it while I was watching that because 25 minutes was kind of a lot of just random outtakes, you know what I mean? But it's cool that it's on there. It's a pretty good feature. They've got still galleries, friggin' trailers, like it's a well-made release. It's also got like a reversible like cover. There's 2 different poster arts on it and stuff. Nice. Like, and it's the original poster art. So it's definitely worth it. Like I would go as far to say, like, for me personally, because that's kind of one of my favorite slasher movies from the 80s. It's one of my most, like, I was really excited about this release. I was waiting for this release, you know? So I was really psyched about it, and I was not disappointed in any way, shape, or form, because it looks amazing. But, okay. There's a couple reviews there. So if anyone was wondering about those movies. And I guess, okay, so we're going to get into our subject in a second here, but I want to ask Mike, so have you seen anything that you want to talk about? Anything new that you've seen recently? And
I did, and it relates to our subject today, which I didn't know our subject when I saw it. But about a week ago, I was in the store and stumbled upon a movie called Zombex.
Zombex?
Yes.
I haven't even heard of this movie before.
Yeah. Well, I was stopped in my tracks by it because Malcolm McDowell's on the cover.
Really?
And he is my favorite actor. So it was almost an immediate purchase because it was only $10. But I picked it up. I said, I've heard of this movie, but I can't remember what's going on. And then I on the cover, it's got Malcolm's name, and then it says Corey Feldman. So I said, oh, it's like God and the Devil. So I'm like, oh, I don't know, whatever. So but it turns out Lou Temple is in it.
Really?
Who is awesome.
Yeah.
And Sid Haig is in it briefly. And I dig Sid in anything he wants to do.
Yeah, right.
And it was directed by Jesse Dayton, who is he was Captain Clegg in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
he did like that Captain Clegg
And the
album,
Night Creatures.
and,
Yeah,
Night
I like that
Creatures,
album,
yeah.
actually. It's pretty good.
Yeah, and he wrote some of the Banjo and Sullivan stuff for Devil's
Okay, yeah,
Rejects.
because it's the same people who did Banjo and Sullivan
Yeah.
and Captain Clegg, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so he's like, he's a musician and whatever, and I dig his stuff, so I'm like, all right, this movie's probably going to be bad.
Yeah.
But it's probably going to be pretty decent considering the talent involved, except Corey
Yeah.
Feldman. So I said, all right, I'm going for it, and I watched it that afternoon, and I was excited, and it's pretty bad.
After all that, it's pretty bad.
Basically, the premise is that it was post-Hurricane Katrina New Orleans, and to fight the community depression, this company produces this drug, and they give it away to everybody, and they take it to, it's kind of like a mood enhancer, and it turns them into zombies.
Huh.
And Lou Temple is a DJ who's rallying against this chemical company, and he's very much, this isn't America, and this, and all that. He's thumping about that. So he actually goes off on a quest with some other folks to, find and stop this pharmaceutical company.
Huh.
McDowell plays a doctor working for that company, and he's great in the scenes he's in, but again, he's not in a lot.
Okay.
Lou Temple. Lou Temple's great, but he couldn't carry the movie because the movie's just not really that good.
Yeah.
The directing is very, I dig Jesse Dayton's music, but the directing is very music video. Lots of real fast cuts and lots of like scenes that just.
Now, is it one of these like bad CGI, low budget movies too? Like, is it pretty practical?
It is a lot of practical. The CGI isn't bad. I don't really have any problem with the makeup or anything like that. They are a little less than traditional zombies because they are running around, and it is like a drug that's making them zombies. Mm-hmm. They're not really, dying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sid Haig, he's good, but he's in one scene, and he plays an army general, and his hat is dented. So I don't think a real general would have a dented hat. So
Sid Haig's kind of funny because Sid Haig is in so many modern horror movies now. It's almost like if you got a couple $100 and you contact him, he'll be in your movie.
Sid Haig plays Sid Haig in every movie.
Yeah,
but that's fine because Sid Haig
is awesome.
Right?
But he's in he's almost having like a second renaissance in his career, where it's like early in his career it was all those Corman flicks. It was like like the women in prison movies and shit like that, where they were kind of like the down and dirty movies. Now he's doing like a handfuls of these like low budget digital like down and dirty movies, and he's always in them for like 5 minutes and then that's it. You know what I mean?
Right. That's that's the scenario now of the the aging quote unquote horror stars or exploitation stars, and they put them top bill on the DVD cover and they're in for 2 minutes. Thankfully though that worked because Corey Feldman was in it for a minute and a half.
Oh, that's good.
So, and he was just terrible.
Was he really?
Yeah, he's, I don't know. After he became a teenager, I don't care about any of his work.
After like the Lost Boys and all those, like those we grew up with, yeah.
So much potential, and then, I don't know. Whatever, he had a tough life. That's great, but just looking at his work, it just doesn't stand up on the screen.
He's more of a persona now than he even is an actor.
Yeah.
And like the character, the person that he is not a person I particularly care to want to know anything about.
Exactly.
So it's like he's known more for his personality, and his personality kind of sucks.
Right.
So like, what does that mean, right?
Right. Nail on the head. So all in all, if you're like me and need to own every Malcolm McDowell movie, go ahead and seek it out because his acting is worth that $10. But and Lou Temple's is too. He's really good in it. But other than that, hey, that's Zombex.
Okay. Let's see. What did I'll try to come up with something that I saw. Oh yeah, I got one that kind of fits in the same. It's not zombie related, but it fits in the same low budget arena. Have you actually ever seen Sharknado? Did you see Sharknado?
I saw the first one.
Okay, you did. Okay, good.
I did.
All right, I saw Sharknado, and while there's no way in hell I can say it's a good movie, it did fully entertain me for the 80 or 90 so minutes that the movie was. It entertained me. that company, that friggin' Asylum company that's been put, and the funny thing about Asylum now is they've kind of got a deal with sci-fi, and they're doing shit with sci-fi now, where they've got oddly enough about zombies, they've got this Zombie Nation TV show that's the Asylum, and it looks like crap. Like, it's like a sort of like a Walking Dead ripoff, and like it's just looks horrible. It looks terrible. I have no interest in watching it whatsoever. But they have this thing where, like, I don't know how they shoot their movies, but their coverage is so fucking chaotic because they cut in these bad CGI shots constantly throughout the whole movie, and like you have no point of reference when you're watching the movie. Like, there are sections in Sharknado where I'm watching it going, where the hell are they? What direction are they even moving in when they're walking? Like, you kind of like, your brain's going like, okay, where are they? What's going on? Like, what? Like that? Like, and I mean, I know we do low budget stuff, but like, I mean, their timing, like the color timing and the shot timings is like 1 minute it's bright, 1 minute it's dark, 1 minute it's bright. Like, I mean, there's like no. It seems like they just don't fucking care.
Yeah.
And they released a lot of like low budget stuff that they've been around for a little while now. And I remember seeing a movie called The House of Winchester Lane or something like that, and another one called I Am Omega, which was basically it was I Am Legend. It was just a rip off of that, but done like Asylum style, where it was all super low budget, like CGI, like, and everything. And all their movies look the same. So I mean, it's hard for me to like recommend Sharknado to somebody, but if you really want to watch like cheesy the one thing that saves Sharknado, because I watched like those Mega Shark versus like whatever, those ones that had like Tiffany and Debbie Gibson in them and shit, the sci-fi original movies as well. The one thing that saved Sharknado for me was the fact that it was a group of characters kind of on the run, traveling around. There was no military dudes. Well, there was one guy who was in like the army, the son or something. But like generally it wasn't like a group of like military guys trying to figure something out. Because that just kind of kills those other low budget, cheapo movies, like just getting boring, like, to me. But I didn't mind it. I don't know, what'd you think of the movie? Like, what's your opinion?
I couldn't appreciate the humor of it at all.
No.
And I get that, that's what that company does.
It was trying to be funny. It does
Right.
try to be funny. It was so fucking ridiculous, though. I think the only thing in the movie that it's so over the top that and this is a spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't watched it but doesn't even care, but when the lead character literally like jumps inside the shark at the end and cuts himself out of the shark, and then he finds the girl that jumped out of the fucking plane into the tornadoes that they were throwing bombs in to stop. Think about that. They were throwing bombs into the center of the tornadoes to stop the tornado. Don't you think that if this was a logical thing that could actually work, that we would have figured out this now, and like military would be up there and helicopters above tornadoes throwing fucking bombs into? There's no logic. You can't apply logic to any of the plot structure in the movie. However, some part of me was like, okay, I'll probably watch that movie again someday just because it's so fucking bad.
Yeah,
like I do sometimes like kind of on like a Birdemic kind of level. Although Birdemic is funny just because it's really low budget and badly made, but badly made by somebody on a very low budget level, and you can almost like watch it. Like, the guy who made it thought he was making a fucking masterpiece.
Right.
And that's what makes that movie. He thought he was making an amazing movie. And when you're watching, like, the opening credit sequence of Birdemic, and, like, the music just keeps looping itself, and it's just a continuous shot through the windshield, and, like, there's, like, these, like, really bad on-screen credits that just keep repeating, like, directed by, where it's like written, say it was a Jay Byrne movie, written by Jay Byrne, music by Jay Byrne, produced by Jay Byrne, executive produced by, but not just like all on one screen. They have a separate screen for each one of these titles. It just almost gets comical. Like, you start laughing because it's just like, it's filmmaker humor. It's almost as if like, it's kind of like This Is Spinal Tap, where that's like musician humor and you get the joke, if you're a musician. Like, Birdemic was random. I just got onto Birdemic all of a sudden, but was filmmaker humor. Like, you laugh at it because the scenes go on a little too long. When they're walking and the dolly's tracking with them, you can tell the actors are trying to walk slow with the dolly, and it just looks weird. And their pace keeps changing, like the slow then faster, slow then faster. It's like it's silly. It just makes me laugh. But I don't know, Sharknado, If this was Siskel and Ebert, we've got I've got a thumb halfway up, and Mike's I think
I got a thumb all the way down.
A thumb up the ass.
I got a thumb in a hell.
But
here's a quick question. Though.
Yes.
Not to get too far off.
No,
subject,
it's okay.
But of Birdemic, Sharknado, or The Room, which is the worst movie?
That's a tough one.
Yes.
I've never seen The Room all the way through. I tried watching it online. I saw maybe The Room. I don't know. Because I feel like I've never given the movie. I think which is the worst movie. All right. No, all right. I'm gonna be complete like a filmmaker point of view. I'm gonna be completely honest. What's the worst movie? I think Sharknado. I think Sharknado. If I have to pick out of the three, I don't like The Room at all. Like it doesn't do anything for me. But you could see that they were trying. The actors were trying in The Room, and they weren't trying to make despite what the fucking filmmaker wants to go out there saying now, where they were trying to make something campy and funny, and no, they were trying to make a fucking soap opera,
right.
And people found it funny and adopted it,
right.
And that's basically what that movie was. But I think the worst movie of the three is probably it is like structurally speaking, it's Sharknado, because the structure is all over the map, and it's like. It's badly made. Like, it's like the CGI. Like, why even bother with But the thing that gets me about that Asylum Company and their CGI, it's like they feel like they have to do it. Because there are shots in Sharknado that don't need the CGI, but they're doing CGI anyway, and it's fucking terrible. It's like, if you can't do it good, why not limit the shots that, like, you do? No, but it's like every shot has some form of, like, terrible CGI in it, like a matte job or something like that. So I don't know. Bad CGI rain. As my wife Katie was pointing out in the beginning of the movie, they were on a boat with this like captain, and she's like, nobody is wet. Like there's rain pouring down, but like none of the characters were wet. like they just don't. It's money. They just don't care. It's all about money with that company. There is no artistic integrity to anything that they're doing. Right. So I don't know. If you want to laugh and have it's on Netflix instant streaming. So if you pay for Netflix, you can put it on for a couple minutes and see if it's your cup of tea or not. But I did see Sharknado. I hear Sharknado 2 is actually better than Sharknado 1. I've not seen Sharknado 2. I don't know what that means.
I get the feeling if you like Sharknado 1, you'll love Sharknado 2.
It's just the kind of...
And if you didn't, you'll hate it more.
Yeah, probably. All right, so I guess we can. We've been going for like a half hour here already, so I guess we'll get into our main subject for the podcast, which is zombie movies, and we'll start kind of like I don't know, like almost like film theory, like history here. We'll go back to like where it all started. We'll start with George Romero. Let's start with the friggin' 1968 Night of the Living Dead. We'll go through the Dead series here. So, what are your thoughts on that? I'll let you talk for a few minutes here on.
All right, yeah, I mean, obviously the zombie was around before then, but it was more of that voodoo.
It was a voodoo zombie.
Yeah,
I Eat Your Skin, I think, was one that was earlier.
Yeah,
I never really.
White Zombie.
Yeah, those movies, right?
From like the 30s. Mm-hmm. But Romero made the modern zombie, which is funny because he did it in the 60s.
I know, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, but I mean, he revolutionized what a zombie was. I love Romero. I mean, he's amazing. He's probably my favorite living director, and people can say what they want about his last few movies, whatever. I find merit in all of them. Diary of the Dead, I thought was good. Again, the first time you watch it, you go, oh, it wasn't like Day of the Dead, whatever. But it's never gonna be again.
It doesn't. And I'll talk more about that when we get to that one. But I have I have my own take on Diary of the Dead as well, where it's like first time I watched it, I kind of it felt like it was just trying to be too modern. But then the more I watched it, the more I kind of appreciated what George Romero was doing in the movie.
Yeah,
he's there. The one thing that's great about George Romero's movies, like his whole film catalog, he's present in the movies that he makes. Like I mean, if you're a fan of his stuff. There's a George Romero movie. You can tell when you're watching a George Romero movie, which I appreciate that, like with certain directors, where like you can tell that it's their movie. You know what I mean? He's always got some kind of socio-political like thing going on. Well, look at we're talking about Night of the Living Dead. Night of the Living Dead was the the race thing was big in that movie, but what funny thing is when you watch the documentaries and you hear them talk about it, they said that they didn't think twice about it at first. Like they hired Ben Dwayne Jones,
Yeah.
is that his name? Yeah, to play the Ben character, and he wasn't written as black. He was just written as a person, as a character, and they ended up having a black guy play him, and it kind of brought out like the racial element of the movie. But when they were making the movie, they're like,
yeah,
okay, he was a good guy, good actor.
Right, white or black, he was still gonna get shot at the end.
Yeah, exactly. That was in the script. That wasn't changing, and it wasn't written as that. And it makes sense because they're from Philadelphia. You know what I mean? Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. Right? Philadelphia, PA, Pennsylvania. Yeah. And there's a large black population in Philadelphia. So if they grew up, it's like I lived in Chicago for 6 years. There's a large black population in Philadelphia, and I'm not a racist in any way, shape, or form. But when you're around like that culture, it's like you don't. It's weird because certain sections of the country, and like it's funny because we're on the East Coast right now. And the East Coast is a section of the country where some people still hold those racial lines. Like it's not we're not in the freaking Louisiana or like, you know what I mean, like in the deep South or anything like that. But some people still hold those like racial lines up. You'll get the jokes like from time to time, like the the racial slurs and the racial jokes. But you go into like the cities and stuff, like like Philadelphia and Chicago, like those cities, heavy black population. They're around black people all the time. They grew up around black people. It never felt any different to them because that's the population they grew up around. And you can kind of see that in like the Dwayne Jones character. Like I can't imagine like George Romero. Oh, okay, nice guy, good actor. Like didn't even think about it really. And it's kind of amazing how big of a thing it is when people look back on that movie. That it really does kind of like. Well, because look, he gets shot at the end, and it's the black guy gets shot at the end by a bunch of freaking white guys. But it's not. It feels that way, but it wasn't in. I think afterwards they looked at it and went, "Well, we got something," but they weren't thinking about it at the time when they were doing it. You know? But I love the original Night of the Living Dead. One of those movies that, growing up, it was always available because the movie's been public domain for years on like crappy like $5.99 VHS tapes. Like it was one of those movies that you almost avoided for a while because it was in the bargain bin with all the other stuff that just looked like junk. You know what I mean? But once you realize, well, this is actually a quality movie. Another movie that was like that, Carnival of Souls, is a quality movie, but it's always been in like the bargain bin because it's one of those things. I guess George Romero, he told the story in one of the documentaries. He said, because it was called Night of the Flesh Eaters, I think was their original title for it. And he said the original title card said Night of the Flesh Eaters, and it said copyright Image 10 on the bottom with the copyright signal. Well, the company decided to change the name to Night of the Living Dead when they distribute it, though whatever company they were distributing from at the time, I can't remember. And when they did that, they forgot to put the copyright symbol with Image 10 on the bottom. He said, and that's all it took. Like, that's all it took for Night of the Living Dead to be in constant public domain limbo all these years. It's like, it's out there. Even to this day, anybody can release Night of the Living Dead. However, you technically cannot release somebody else's transfer of it. Like, I can't, like, take the Weinstein transfer and release it, like, on my own. Well, I'm sure there are people that do it, and, you know. But if you went out and, say, found a print, like an old print of it, and transferred it yourself and put it down, you can put it out. And there's tons of people that have done it. There are tons of companies that have done it. The best ones out there, though, are essentially the official ones, which right now is the Weinstein Company. The best transfer that ever existed of Night of the Living Dead was the Elite Laserdisc transfer that came out. That was actually Don May from Synopsis was like the supervisor. That was one of the first movies that they ever worked on. That's a really good transfer. The thing is that transfer was done in standard definition back in the day, so all that can ever be is a DVD. There is no high definition master for that, so they'd have to go back and do it again. Weinstein's went back and did it again, and for some reason they went back and they recropped some of the shots. I don't know why they did it. Maybe they did it to try to copyright their own transfer. I've read they did that to try to copyright their own transfer, so if somebody steals it, they can know right away, well, they're using our transfer because there's a few shots where it's zoomed in a little more than others.
Right.
But it looks great anyway. It looks friggin' amazing. And I have a Japanese import that came out that you can get, which is it's basically the Weinstein DVD that came out with the documentary and the commentaries and stuff like that. Just a Japanese import on Blu-ray, and it looks friggin' amazing. It's worth it. It's definitely worth it. I'm getting a little more off the movie, not on the technical side, but I love Night of the Living Dead. I mean, there's not a hell of a lot to say. It's such an influential movie. It started the zombie genre. Is that that's so crazy to like be able to tie it to like say like George Romero. It's so weird for him to think like I started all this. The Walking Dead, all this zombie craze that's going on. He started it.
Right.
Like he started the modern zombies. Like he created those like slow moving, flesh eating zombies. That's his creation.
I funny at Walker Stalker convention was in Boston earlier this year, and it was mostly Walking Dead people.
Yeah.
But also there was Judith O'Dea and Russ Streiner.
Yeah.
And I met them, and I was talking to Judith O'Dea, and I was saying, it was great that you're here, or whatever. And she's like, yeah, it's kind of overwhelming with all The Walking Dead and whatever. And I said, well, none of this would be here without your film, so take some pride in that. And I never thought of it like that.
It's funny, they don't think of it like that, but it really is true. They started it all. They created what a zombie looks like, how it acts, like, because the movies, like you said, movies before them, like I Eat Your Skin and stuff like that, like, these are voodoo zombies. These are like, they were all like, there's a doctor, actually very much like, which we can talk a little bit about after, like Zombie, like Lucio Fulci Zombie. It's more in the realm of that type of a zombie movie than what George Romero did. But, all right, well, so that, we get Night of the Living Dead. I love Night of the Living Dead. I've always been a huge fan of that movie, and I think even though some people have a thing with older black and white movies and they can't really get into them, it's very contemporary feeling. It's I don't know. Maybe it's the claustrophobic nature of the characters in one place through like that. I don't know why, but
it's that, and it's the way Romero writes his characters. He's excellent at creating the depth to his characters,
like people. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, he really is. Like, I mean, I like pretty much everything I've seen as George Romero, but like even as we get into like the later movies, okay, get into the next movie in George Romero's Dead series was 1978 Dawn of the Dead, which, I mean, it's still, to me, it's in like it's one of my top 10 horror movies, like just horror. Like, it's definitely one of my top 10 horror movies. I was obsessed with it for years. Like, Dawn of the Dead has always been kind of like one of my favorite ones. I don't know what it is about Dawn of the Dead. It's just, I like the characters in Dawn of the Dead. I love the idea of the mall, of them being trapped in the mall, and it's just, they create this own little world for themselves. And what's funny about that movie is the zombies are very peripheral through most of that movie. That movie really, I mean, they are in the original movie as well, but they're more of a threatening presence in Night of the Living Dead. In Dawn of the Dead, the zombies aren't even particularly that threatening. Because, like, you hole yourself up somewhere and they're just there and they just go out, live their life in the mall. Like, you know what I mean? The whole movie. And, like, you have long chunks of that movie where you don't see a zombie. Once they clean them up, there's a good 20 minutes where you don't even see a zombie.
Yeah, I mean, you've got military guys tactically taking out the zombies. So, it does present kind of a non-threat. But that makes it better because then when shit goes down, then you realize that, they really are a threat.
Well, you get the classic Romero thing, and it's like with all those zombies movies, it's like, okay, the zombies are technically the threat, but the people that are dealing with each other are the problem.
Right.
And the people always fuck it up.
Right.
And by the end of the movie, they fucked it up, the zombies are getting in, and then all hell breaks loose. It's the same structure through most of those movies.
Right. People can't get along, and look what happens.
Totally. And do you have any opinion, because Dawn of the Dead is one of these movies where there's been multiple versions of the movie available over the years. Now, when I was like originally into it, and really like when I first got into the movie, I kind of liked there was an extended cut of the movie that came out. Like, now I appreciate that movie now, but I've actually grown to appreciate the original theatrical cut of the movie That's my favorite cut of the movie now. I think I just liked it when I was younger because it had more stuff in it. Like,
Right.
it was longer.
Right.
But, like, I've listened to the commentary and stuff on there where George Romero himself specifically says that was an unfinished version of the movie. That was a premiere cut or a
played at
festival
a
cut,
festival,
right? And that
yeah.
was like once it played or
Yeah.
something like that. And that was it. He says it's got library music in it that wasn't even the finished music in certain sections. So it's not a temporary. So which cut of the movie do you actually prefer? There's also the Dario Argento cut, the zombie cut, which
Which
is
is
just
shorter.
weird to
Yeah.
me. It's a strange version of the movie.
Yeah, I agree that the quote unquote Romero approved, like the theatrical version,
Which is technically it's an unrated version because there was a version of that version that existed where it cut some of the gore out.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like an uncut, unrated version of what played in the theater back in the 70s, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I agree, and I did go through went through a little period when they released that 4-disc box set,
Well,
so
yeah.
I could see
Yes.
the full or the long cut. And I do like the long cut because it's got like that Joe Pilato scene. You go, oh, Joe Pilato's in this.
Oh yeah.
You know, but it's got stuff like that, and and it's really cool to watch once in a while. But if I'm just gonna pop one of them in, it's gonna be the unrated theatrical.
Honestly, from like a filmmaking point of view, as a filmmaker and as like an editor, which I consider myself an editor, I've come to the realization that I get why George Romero looks at that longer cut and says, like, this just isn't the finished version of the movie. The pacing is much better in his approved cut
Yeah.
of the movie. Like, the movie moves at a better pace. The things that were taken out don't need to be there. They're not important to the overall structure of the movie. Like, I mean, specifically, like, I remember it. The whole thing with the cigarettes and the guys when they leave at the beginning. There's a whole scene where they meet those
Yeah.
guys going into the boat
Yeah,
and stuff
the
like that.
Pilato stuff.
That's the Joe Pilato
Yeah.
scene. Okay, okay. That whole sequence is an entertaining sequence, but it's not necessary. And it's so funny when you watch the theatrical cut of that movie because it's so easily gone. Like,
Right.
they walk over, they're like, hey, where are you guys going? Oh, we're on our way out. And then they're in the helicopter and
Right.
they're out. It's not necessary at that point in the movie, and I kind of get that. Like, and it's an interesting study in editing, I think, those two versions of that movie, because you can watch it, and there are those out there, those fans, like those collector type fans that they just want the longest version of the movie that they can get because they want more. And in a way I get that because they feel like it's value because they're getting more of the movie. But as a filmmaker and as a lover of cinema in general, I can understand when that's not the finished version of the movie. Okay, yeah, this might be a longer cut of the movie, but I tend to go with, most of the time, I end up going with the theatrical cut of most movies because it's tighter paced. It feels finished. It doesn't feel like, yeah.
But there can be, and you'll probably agree with me because we kind of touched on it. There can be too tightly compacted
Yes.
pacing, and that's the Argento cut.
Yeah, the zombie version is it feels like there's nothing in the movie. It feels like a commercial for the same movie.
Yeah, it does.
And it's not too much shorter. It's a good 20 minutes or so shorter than the approved cut, the actual theatrical cut. Yeah, it's weird. It feels like an edited for TV version or something.
Yeah.
And it's all the Goblin music, which, don't get me wrong, I love the Goblin music. It's a great score. But there's something to be said for the library music that's used in the film
amazing.
because it makes it feel like Night of the Living Dead with the library music. You take that library music out, I noticed this. I used to think okay, does Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead even feel like they're made by that they connect? But I kind of looked at it as, if you put Dawn of the Dead in black and white and you go from the end of Night of the Living, you turn the color off on your TV. With that library music, the way the Dawn of the Dead starts, it feels like the continuation of Night of the Living Dead. I'm like, okay, it really does. It does feel like the follow-up. But for years, it kind of didn't connect to me. Maybe it's because this one was black and white and this one was the 70s. It just didn't connect. But it does connect. Totally.
And it also gives an innocence to the movie, which helps develop the characters and the feel of the movie, which the Argento stuff doesn't, because it is all the Goblin stuff. So it's the same band, so it's the same style of music through the whole thing. Whereas when you hear that library track, you go, oh, that's kind of silly. But it makes you feel a different way. It makes you feel like you're in the mall.
Yeah, it does. Actually, it does. And there's some specifically. There's a sequence where they go into the gun shop, like about 3/4 of the way of the movie. If you watch like the zombie version of it, it has this really weird like native music playing, like that's done by like Goblin. But they have almost a similar idea with the real theatrical cut, but it's like this library music. But it sounds more. I get it. It sounds more. I guess American is the word. It feels normal. The zombie version, it just feels weird. It's like, what is this weird, cheesy, strange music playing in the background? Like, it just feels awkward and out of place. But I gotta tell you, it was so weird about that is that, like, I guess, because Dario Argento was a producer on Dawn of the Dead, and the whole concept for him, like, the whole idea was he'd put the money in as long as he had the rights for the final cut for the overseas territory and stuff like that. So he had rights to take the movie and just kind of finish it on his own as a producer. And that's just a very weird scenario that, like, you know, the foreign producer had rights to just take the movie and make it what he wanted. And he did. And there are fans of that cut out there. There are a lot of people, like, I mean, even not so people that are really into Italian cinema. There are ones that like, oh, I like the zombie cut, the Dario Argento cut, but I don't know. To me, it feels a little ingenuous. It doesn't feel as Romero-esque. Like it feels kind of like a Dario Argento movie, but sort of. I mean, as much as you can make it feel like a Dario Argento movie, you know.
Yeah, it feels tampered with, and I mean, like here's another thing. Now we can kind of watch in this film too, like the evolution of what the cinema zombie becomes. Because in Night, you know, they had freshly come out of the grave, and you know they were kind of like humans who didn't have too much for wounds or anything. You know, they looked pretty normal. Like maybe they were, you know, they had just recently died, as they say in the newscast. But you know, there isn't too much involved with the makeup or effects or whatnot. And then in Dawn, you know, okay, the skin for most of them still isn't too bad. It's like that gray tone that Savini used. But even the gore, you know, it's not as bad. It's a lot more advanced than Night.
Yes.
But it's still, you know, it's still kind of midway. There's some guys that are like really ghastly, but then there's a lot that, you know, they've just got the gray paint on, and that's how it is, and that's what you accept because that's what they're, you know, they're giving you. And they didn't really have any zombie competition in the States back then, so they were kind of establishing
their own style.
Yeah.
And there's a very specific look to Dawn of the Dead. Like the way it's filmed and the style. Actually, the only thing I can really compare it to is some of the other Romero movies from its time period, like Martin and like and even Night Riders. There's a certain look to those movies, the way that they were filmed, where that was just like, I guess, where Romero was at during those couple of years. You know, like where like the film, whoever shot it, Michael. Gornick, was the cinematographer, and like it's just he had a certain look to it, and I mean we're gonna get into today, but before we get into today, I'll just bring up quickly because I don't really need to go too heavily into this, but since we're talking about Dawn of the Dead, what are your opinions on the remake?
Oh, I like the remake.
I do too. Yeah, actually, I do. Sometimes I feel like I have to defend it to people because they're just like the remake of Dawn of the Dead, but I do think it's pretty cool. It's a different beast entirely than the original movie. Because it's more of a modern kind of zombie thing, but they still do a pretty good job with the characters in the mall. The mall feels different because it's more modern, and like it's less about like you don't get as much of like Romero's political like consumerism thing. It's just a place for them to be in the remake. Yeah,
it's definitely like a popcorn movie. But it's a well done movie, and that's you know, you can take the changes, fast zombies, whatever. Yeah. But it's a well done movie, and I mean it's a James Gunn script.
It is a James Gunn script, right?
And and Snyder, what's his first
Zack
name?
Snyder.
Zack Snyder. I mean, and that was his big like directorial break.
That was his big directorial break. Yeah.
And I like his style. I like Gunn's. You know, Gunn brought the humor to the serious stuff. He's really good at that.
He did.
So I thought that was a really good movie.
Cool. I like that movie actually too, and I think it's a good companion piece to the original Dawn of the Dead because you really can like both of those movies. Like it's and not feel like you kind of can watch them back to back and not feel like you're watching the same movie either. They have similar elements, of course, the mall and the characters going into the mall and stuff like that, but they're different. They do a lot of different things, and it was a creative remake. Like I think it's a remake that will hold up throughout the years. You know, there were certain ones that'll hold up, and I think that's one that'll hold up.
I agree.
Okay, we'll move forward now. Going into Day of the Dead, which I think this is your favorite of the series, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. I'm on the fence. I love Day and I love Dawn. Dawn has always been kind of my favorite, but I've grown to have more of an appreciation for Day, and I've always loved Day, but I've grown to have even a better appreciation of it over the past couple of years. But that's a down and dirty, gritty little movie.
Oh yeah.
And that movie really starts. So Dawn. So we went from '78. Day of the Dead is 1985, I think, right?
Yes.
And so we went. That's a long period of time for the next Dead movie. So it must have been kind of cool for like fans of those movies at the time, because they must have been like, wow, another one. Wow, they made another one of these movies. This is pretty cool. And you've got the military people under the ground, the whole bunker under the ground. It kind of develops. You actually start developing like character zombies in that one, because you got Bub, you know what I mean, who's a character zombie and stuff. But I mean, that is a mean-spirited fucking movie.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's pissed off in that fucking movie, screaming at each other and everything. Well, Joe Pilato, right? Yeah,
yes.
Exactly. And I think where that movie really, I mean, and I like the movie overall, but where it really excels is that this was the first time. This is like, that's where like KMB started, that movie. That's where like they like the effects for the zombies really came into their own in that movie, I think, because those zombie effects in Day of the Dead hold up so well to modern like times right now. Like, you can watch Day of the Dead like alongside friggin' Walking Dead now, and it holds up. Like, there's some really good zombie makeup in that.
It's still Nicotero.
It's Nicotero.
That's why.
It's just an evolution of the same thing, really. Definitely. But yeah. So thoughts on Day of the Dead?
Man, Day of the Dead is so good, and you know, like you're saying, you like I mentioned too with the zombie evolution. You know, that's where it took the giant leap from Dawn of the Dead had the few key, you know, zombies that looked messed up, but now like Day of the Dead, all the zombies looked messed up.
Yeah.
Some of the background ones just had little masks on or whatever.
Yeah, there are a few shots where you can see like the masked ones. Yeah.
But man, like any feature zombie was the most disgusting thing, and they had a lot of feature zombies.
Yes.
You know, they really put the zombies in the foreground. You know, it wasn't like an ancillary kind of thing. It's
almost like whereas like Night and Dawn, they're, like you said, like they're like an ancillary thing. They're kind of on the outskirts, the zombies, and then they come in. It seems like the zombie threat is 50-50 with the characters almost in Day of the Dead. It's as much zombies as it is the characters as well. Yeah. And the characters are great. And there's a good drama going on between the military characters and all that stuff that's going on underneath the ground.
Right.
I love it.
I think this one has the best characterization. I think, you know, more so than the other films, this one has the most, you know, because it's so claustrophobic. It's that one location, and it has every character. Like, the military guys are kind of the military guys. They're all like one kind of united thing, which they should be, because they're, you know, a team. But then even within the other ranks of the doctors, there's dissension there, with Dr. Frankenstein being fucking crazy.
Yeah, that doctor's nuts. Yeah, man. He's crazy.
And then Sarah's trying to do something good for everybody, but then you've got the pilot, and you've got the radio guy, and they have a different opinion, and they don't even live on base. They
found their own little spot in their trailer off to like their little utopia that they created in there.
So like they have to fight the hardest to get along for the greater good. You know, which they are able to, you know, after all hell breaks loose.
Yeah,
you know?
right. Exactly. No, I think Day of the Dead is great. There was a remake of Day of the Dead. Have you ever seen it? The Steve Miner remake?
No, but I'm in it.
You're in it?
No, all right. Somebody with my name is in it.
Oh, Michael Welch, the actor, the English actor.
Yeah, so everybody laughs at me. But no, I apparently it's god-awful, so I don't really want to watch it. I heard it's
bad. Yeah. They even made like a sequel to that one.
Yeah, they did.
There's a sequel to it's like another Day of the Dead. I've never seen it. It's directed by Steve Miner, oddly enough.
Wow.
which is surprising because I don't know, he came from a good era of horror, but he just I guess didn't do it. But no, I friggin' Day of the Dead. It's just classic, and it ages very well.
Yeah.
Like I love Dawn of the Dead, but I actually have to say I think Day of the Dead ages better than Dawn of the Dead does. Even though I love Dawn of the Dead, and it will always be a classic of mine, but I was listening to another podcast. It might have been like Killer POV or something like that, and they were talking about Romero or something like that, and they were debating over like if you needed to show somebody, if somebody was going to wanted to see like a zombie movie, never seen a zombie movie, and you had Romero's trilogy of specifically the initial trilogy of zombie movies, which one would you show them first? Like, would you start from the beginning? I think Day of the Dead is the most accessible for a more modern audience.
It is that is the thing. It has the most subject matter that's relevant today.
Yeah, I think they could relate to it like a more like younger kids and more modern audience could relate to Day of the Dead better today. Like Dawn of the Dead's a great movie, but they might find that a little hokey, and the black and white element of Night of the Living Dead, it might take them a little bit of effort to kind of go back and appreciate the older ones. But Day of the Dead is very contemporary feeling, and it's dark and gritty and violent and just a great little movie.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're going forward with the Dead movies. Now, I'm not sure exactly what year. I know it's in the 2000s there. I think it might be in
2004? 4 or 5. It was the same year as Devil's Rejects.
Okay. Oh, 2004 then was what it was. I'm pretty sure. I'm sure somebody can find if we're wrong. Somebody will notice it.
Because they were both out the same springtime or
right.
summer. That was a great season.
It was an awesome season. I got to tell you, so we're at Land of the Dead is the next one, and there was quite a long period, actually a longer period in between Day and then Land. Basically, it was the type of thing where it was like, will George Romero ever make another Dead movie? Is it gonna happen and stuff like that? And I was super fucking excited for Land of the Dead when it came. That was like an event movie for me. I was like, fucking Land of the Dead, man. It's a new George Romero Dead movie. Like
I took the day off from work to see the first showing.
That's awesome.
Yes.
And I gotta say, it has a lot of detractors. A lot of people don't like it. But I love Land of the Dead. I think it's a great fucking movie. What I love about Land of the Dead is George Romero getting a budget and being able to make a Dead movie. Finally, it seems like George Romero had some money to make one of these movies, and this is what it was. And there's some great stuff in there. Aji Argento in there. Like, they have that whole, like underground scene where they've got the zombies fighting in the cages and stuff like that. I don't know. I really like it. I think a lot of people have issues with Simon Baker is his name.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't like him as I actually liked his character. Fine. I thought he was a good character. I think what's funny about Land of the Dead now is I keep comparing to Walking Dead because it's impossible not to. Like when you're talking about George Romero zombies. Land of the Dead really feels like The Walking Dead. Like if you really compare elements of it, it feels like it could be part of that universe. Like
there's so much outdoors to it.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And I don't know. I'm just a big fan. I've always loved that movie, and I've always I would defend it like to people who like Land of the Dead, because there's a lot of Land of the Dead sucks people out there. I don't know. I don't know why. I don't get it. I don't really understand why people don't like that movie.
I do get it. I think because, like, I mean, it's got really good acting. I mean, Robert Joy, who I can't remember the character name, but he had the side of his face that was all messed up, and people would think it was a zombie.
Of course, Dennis Hopper.
Dennis Hopper was amazing.
He's fucking great.
The zombies, man, they creep me out, and he's picking his nose. That is amazing acting.
Yes.
Leguizamo was really
good.
Leguizamo,
I forgot about him. Yeah, he's great in it.
But you know, like I think they look at that military machine, the vehicle that they were using, Dead Reckoning, which was originally going to be the name of the movie.
Was going to be the name of the movie, right? Yeah.
And they look at that. Oh, that's peaches, whatever. And it was also the first CGI Romero zombie movie. A lot of CGI was in there.
There is some CGI in there. I think it's like some of the blood and some of the stuff.
So
nothing really. I mean, they didn't take away from like the practical effects. I think it's a nice blend.
It is. It is.
It blends pretty well. Like I don't even think, like, when I think of Land of the Dead, CGI doesn't really come to mind. So apparently it blended in pretty well.
Right. I mean, that's for me, it's fine. But
and you got Tom
I'm
Savini as
saying,
like his like a side character.
Yes,
He's the guy. He comes back as his character from Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead. He's still around.
He's still around.
You know, I mean, and I'm just saying why I can get why people don't dig it. You know, and like I think that there's a lot of people that just don't think the zombies would evolve, and I get all that, but I really dig this movie.
Oh yeah,
you know,
I really like the style of it, and I really like the feel of it, and like I said, like without constantly bringing up The Walking Dead again, I think it's what attracts me to The Walking Dead is that it kind of feels like that, like it's that era of the dead. It's like Day of the Dead and Land of the Dead. That's the world that they're kind of living in The Walking Dead, you know.
Right. And this movie takes a big leap forward too, because you show that the class system has come back.
Yeah, because you've got like the whole community that place. I forget what the name of it is. I haven't watched it in a while, but like, yeah, where you got the rich people in there and stuff. And I love it's such classic Romero when the zombies finally break through and they start ripping the rich people apart.
Yeah,
because they're all so in their little world, not afraid of anything. You know what I mean? It's so great.
And even that non-zombie part where Leguizamo goes to get his apartment,
right?
And he can't because he's
not
worker.
Part of that world. He's one of the workers,
right.
And he thought he had a deal with like the guy, one of the higher ups. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, you're not part of this. You don't come in. No, I love Land of the Dead. I think it's a great movie. Actually, what's funny about this makes me want to watch Land of the Dead again.
I know.
But no, I did. I'm a big fan of Land of the Dead. So, well, I guess we'll move forward. We both loved Land of the Dead.
Yeah, and one last thing. I mean,
and
it was great to see a Romero movie in the theater.
Oh yeah, it was really cool because for me, we're a little younger for the earlier movies. Like, I didn't see Day of the Dead.
No, we were 10.
We were 10, yeah.
and it wasn't a wide release.
It wasn't a wide release.
No.
So it was kind of nice to get a chance to see one of those movies on the big screen.
Well, because Day was released unrated.
Yeah.
So they couldn't advertise for it. You couldn't even get in unless, you had the parent or adult or whatever anyway.
Right.
So.
And so like Land was R because it's part of the modern subculture now. Right. But I think is unrated on the Blu-ray, I think. Or
it
the
is
DVD.
on the
unrated
DVD,
cut.
it is
so
unrated.
There is some slight differences. Not a hell of a lot though.
No.
It's pretty
Extra
minor.
gore.
That's about it. Yeah. It's because I don't remember there being a big difference between the version I watched on home video and what I saw in the movie theater. No. It's like barely anything. So we move forward now because we're still going through all George Romero's Dead series here. We're at Diary of the Dead, which is I don't remember the year of Diary of the Dead, but it's probably like a couple years after that. It'd be like 2007 or 2008 or something.
Yeah.
This one is one that gets kind of like a lot of criticism. Like there are people that love it and there are people that completely hate. This is kind of where the series ends for a lot of people like old school fans. But I gotta say, it's the whole found footage idea, but it's done differently though. Like with this movie, because you got the filmmakers and everything falls apart while they're making their movie, and then the cameras move along with them. So there's almost a structural way of. I think if the movie has any faults, is that the found footage element of the movie is almost too slick because it's made by a film. Like it feels like too planned. You know what I mean? But I don't know. At the first time I watched Diary of the Dead, I didn't love it. But I never hated it though. Like, and the funny thing about it is I watched it with my wife Katie, and she didn't like it. She hated it. She thought it sucked. She's like, this movie sucks. She's like, she hated it. But I'm like, it's really not that bad though. I'm like, I don't see. All right, it's not. I'm like, okay, this isn't the best one or anything, but I mean, I don't see. It's a different approach for these type of movies, and the George Romero thing is totally precedent. I mean, it feels like a Dead movie. It's all there, you know.
Right.
But go ahead.
I liked, I liked it the first time I saw it. Again, I didn't love it. I saw some, flaws, but I really liked the idea. I liked most of the acting. Again, it started to go a little more into the CGI territory.
Yeah.
But they still had a lot of good practical, like Nicotero played a zombie. And
he looked
great. but I really dug it, and I never. That's the one where I never really got all the detractors from it because I thought it was really clever and well done.
And it builds to a really good conclusion too, like with all them in the house. They get like they and you know there's that like what is it, like a safe room,
The
like, kinda that they get
the
locked
panic room,
into.
and then when they're
Panic
watching
room, yeah.
on the screen, the guy that runs the house, that owns the house, and he's a zombie now, and he's
Yeah.
all in that mummy makeup.
Yeah,
and
it's
like
pretty
that's
fucking
creepy,
cool.
man.
It's cool. There are a lot of I think it's one of these movies that will be fans of the genre who get into all these movies years from now won't have the stigma that like the we like and like our peers of the horror genre had going into that, because we knew what was around at the time. And you know, while George Romero, and it makes sense because the way he talks about those dead movies is he takes kind of what's going on in the culture at the time and applies it to his structure. And so it makes sense that he would have taken kind of like a popular format that was being used to make movies, the found footage idea. Like, you know, people kind of burnt, and people are burnt out on it now, and it's still happening, but people were kind of burnt out on it even back then at that point, and they were kind of like, found footage? Like, what, why did he go that route? But I don't know. I like it. It's an interesting take on, almost feels like a reboot of the whole series in a weird way.
And it kind of was, and even he said that because that goes back to the night it all broke out.
Right, because it starts from the beginning again, right?
Right.
Doesn't it? Yeah, it's a modern take
Right.
on the night it broke out.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's probably another reason why people, didn't like it. You know, you can't please everybody.
So in a sense, it is a separate entity. Like, it does continue from a separate entity.
Right.
Now, all right. So I mean, that's Diary of the Dead. I like Diary of the Dead. I think it's a good movie. I think it deserves some reappraisal by those who didn't care for it initially.
Yeah, and even Romero says that a lot of people seemingly, the masses anyway, don't seem to convert to liking his movies for like 10 years after they come out, because everybody used to hate Day of the Dead.
Yeah, right.
You
Yeah,
know?
and then they like it 10 years later. It's
Right.
Day of the Dead now is considered to be like typically the best one of the whole series for a lot of people.
Right.
That's the one that gets mentioned the most, is Day of the Dead, for
Right.
whatever reason. But then so we go from Diary of the Dead, I guess we move forward here, to Survival of the Dead, which is at this point the last Dead movie, and I think it's I don't foresee there being any more Dead movies by George Romero at this point. Yeah. I don't think there's anything left that he can say because of things like The Walking Dead. I think it kind of took his idea and went further than even he ever went with it. You know what I mean? So there's nothing left to say. I say that, which is funny when I think of The Walking Dead, or I say to myself, I love The Walking Dead. But I'm like, nobody can ever make another zombie movie, because what are you going to do to top it? Like, Romero did it with his movies, and then you went with the TV show, you went further and deeper with the characters and just kept going. Like, what's left? I mean, I would almost feel like if somebody's going to make a zombie movie, they would have to be so different from that. You couldn't go back to kind of like the Romero style. You just couldn't, because it would feel so derivative of like The Walking Dead. If you tried to make one, it would just feel like you were ripping off The Walking Dead or George Romero, you know?
Right.
But what is your opinion of Survival of the Dead? I like Survival of the Dead. I think it's the weakest entry in the series, definitely. I haven't seen it in a while, actually. That's one I'm not as clear on in my head right now. But I don't even remember. I'm not sure what the year was on that one. I would imagine it's probably like 4 or 5 years after the.
2010.
Was it 2010? Okay, around 2010. Okay, and I was very excited when I heard about it. I was like, oh, another one, cool. That movie seemed like, because it kind of went back to the independent roots, trying to get it made, that it kind of it's like he had a budget for land. The budget kind of leaked over almost like into Diary, where he still had some money, found a cheaper way to do Diary. And it's almost like he wanted to make Survival of the Dead, to me, feels like it's almost like the extra bits of Day of the Dead that didn't get made. Doesn't it? Like it almost feels like it's the parts of Day of the Dead that didn't get made, because originally, like, the script for the Day of the Dead had a lot above ground as well.
Right.
And it almost seems like it's almost seems like he took the stuff from that, and that's what Survival of the Dead is.
I mean, from what I understand, it's I can't remember what, but it's like the.
I don't remember as much about
McCoys.
Survival of the Dead, unfortunately. Like,
Yeah.
I should probably have like refreshed myself.
That's
But
fine.
but when you get to that point of the series, it's kind of like. But I do remember Survival of the Dead to me was a Western
Right.
with the dead elements.
Right.
into it.
It's the Hatfields versus the McCoys.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
And yeah, he wanted to make his Western, and which is funny because it's like an Irish community.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it is an Irish community, right?
I really like Survival of the Dead. I also, in some way, I agree that it's the weakest, but really, you know what I think sinks Survival of the Dead, which I've been hinting at as we started back from land,
Yeah.
is the CGI. The effects, like I love some of the kill ideas that he used CGI for, and then the CGI made him look like shit.
Well, because of it seems like they didn't have a very good budget for that.
No, they didn't.
So it's like they almost probably should have went more practical with it. Maybe they should have laid off a little bit on some of the. I mean, I know it's weird to say lay off on some of the zombie violence in a zombie movie, but maybe if they couldn't do too much of it, have a few cool set pieces and focus more on the characters and kind of lay off the actual gore elements,
right?
You know.
But that's what saves it for me is the character. I
think
the
characters are. That's the one thing about all of those movies is the characters are always good.
Yeah.
And that's a Romero thing. That's George Romero. He's just really good with characters. Like his characters are always entertaining. Like they stand out. And like if you get anything from those movies is you remember the characters. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And like the idea, I mean, two families on an island who have differing opinions on how to deal with the zombies. It's so simple, but it's so amazing. And you're taking a side, but you can see the other family's side, and that's the best thing is when you can see both sides. And you've got the Seamus Muldoon guy and who doesn't want to kill him, and Patrick O'Flynn, and he is the best actor in this movie. He like steals the whole show because he's the old crotchety old guy.
Oh yeah, okay,
with
okay,
the
yeah,
big Irish accent, yeah. And he's a bastard sometimes, but you find yourself siding with him.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think it's really well done. I think the guy who was the leader of the military group, I think he did really well. Like the acting was really good.
Yeah, it was.
It was really just some of the effects that people shit on.
Some of it feels incomplete. It almost feels like unfinished in some spots. Like they went as far as they could with it, and they just didn't have any money to make those scenes any better, so they just left them the way they were in the movie. But and it's like, but I still don't feel that like if you're a fan of the series, it's worth seeing. Like it's
oh, yeah.
Some people kind of dismiss it entirely. It's funny with Survival of the Dead because it feels like it's been dismissed. It's almost like it doesn't exist in the series. I mean, it's never mentioned. Nobody talks about it. Like it never gets brought up like in anything. Like I don't think the movie got that much attention. I don't think it got. You know what I mean?
It didn't get it got a tiny cinematic. All right, so I got to see it twice in the theater.
Did you actually see it in the theater?
Yeah.
Okay, I only got to see it at home. Like I didn't because I never even knew where it played or like.
Well, I saw it because actually he did a signing for Newbury Comics where I work, not the store, but I went to another Newbury in Boston. He did a signing, and that night had a free showing at the Brattle next door.
I remember that. I remember hearing about that. Yeah.
So I went to that, and like he introduced it and stuff, and so it was the second Romero movie I got to see on the big screen.
Now, was it completely finished at that point? It wasn't like an early screener cut or anything like that.
No, it was cool. It was finished and ready to go, and then like it debuted on demand.
It was one of the
time.
first VOD movies, actually, kind of like that whole model that goes with a lot of movies now.
Yeah, and then what went along with that was a very small theatrical run, which I had to go to another cinema in Boston. I don't even remember which one to go see, and I saw it with a buddy. And like I have a little soft spot for Survival. I have a little boner for it.
Okay.
And people like can crap on it, but I watch it all the time. I
think I gotta watch. I mean, I liked it. I enjoyed it. And I think I really need to kind of rewatch it. I think that's almost like Diary of the Dead, where like I need to kind of watch it again. Like I haven't watched it in a while. It's one I should probably just pop in and watch it again. I'll probably have almost a better appreciation for it. I mean, I don't dislike the movie. I never hated it. I actually enjoyed it while I was watching it, and I liked it. Kind of forgot about it afterwards, but I enjoyed it when I was watching it at the time. So I got to kind of like give it another shot, I think.
Yeah, everybody just has to drop the comparisons from movie to movie.
You can't, yeah.
You can't.
I don't think he ever... That's the thing about those movies is we live in a culture now where we live in a sequel culture, like where it's a follow up or a reboot or a remake or a this and a that. And looking back on Night, Dawn, and Day, like they were very different beasts each movie, and it almost like they were a series of movies, but almost like you couldn't call them sequels. Like you couldn't. It was just another zombie movie, another dead movie by George Romero, different subject matter. Like, I mean, I know they were part of a series technically, but I don't think George Romero ever looked at it like that. I just thought well, zombies are my thing, and that's how I tell my story. Like, you know what I mean? At the time,
he wasn't really doing sequels. He was doing. This is an update of the story, say 10 years from where I was before.
Exactly. And I think that's what gets lost in when people start looking at like from like Land of the Dead on, is they start looking at everything like now it's all about like the trilogies and the sequels and the follow-ups, and you know what I mean, where it has to almost connect directly. And there are 3 completely different movies: Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, and it's almost like a separate trilogy of zombie movies. Actually, Diary of the Dead, like I said, kind of restarts the whole thing. I don't remember, because I haven't seen it in a while, like how survival fits in. Is it following from Diary, or is it just another?
It's an offshoot, because the guy that led the military group was the guy that boarded their RV in Diary. And
there was a connection. Yeah, okay. I forgot about the RV guy. Okay, yeah. So there's that connection. All right. So in essence, it's almost like Diary kind of restarted a version of the story again. He said he had something called Twilight of the Dead, that I think it was called Twilight of the Dead, which was going to be another zombie movie. He was supposedly making another one following Survival of the Dead, but that just never happened, I don't know if it ever is going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw him at a Q&A, and he said that, if he could get the funding, and again, this was when Survival came out, he had 2 more spin-off ideas that would both spin off from characters that were in Diary. So Diary was the launching point.
Okay, it was the launching point for a new kind of grouping of these movies.
Yeah, so he was going to take characters from there, that weren't the main characters in Diary, and spin them off, just like he did with Survival.
Well, the interesting part about like the original 3, when you look back on them, is unless I'm missing something that was in there are absolutely no ties to characters in those 3 movies, is there? Right? From Night to Dawn, there's no mention of a character from Night. Well, there wouldn't be, though, because they're trapped in a farmhouse out in the middle of nowhere. There really wouldn't be much of it would just be almost like a weird hokey reference if it was brought up. And I'm pretty sure there's no mention of any of the characters from Dawn and Day. Right? Oh, no. There is... No, there isn't. There isn't. And not until Land. They mention Day of the Dead, and Land. They say, "Oh, there was this outpost where where these guys were." Yeah,
and the Savini character.
Yes. Yeah. They make and the Savini character is really the only reference. But I mean, it's just the zombie. There's no character mention or reference for those movies. So that's interesting that like his later series of zombie movies, he started to do the let's tie this character into this and tie that character into that. It's pretty interesting. I mean, I would be interested. I mean. He's pretty up there in years now, and I think he's just getting kind of burnt out by the film industry at this point. I mean, but I'd be up for another one. I mean, I love this series of movies. It's always been one of my favorite series of horror movies. You know what I mean? So I mean, and it's even like when you get to like Survival, even calling it a horror movie, it's kind of something on its own. Like it kind of became its own thing, and I just like these movies. They're just entertaining to me. All right. Well, before we get into Walking Dead, which we'll talk about for a little bit, let's offshoot here a little bit, okay? Let's bring up some of the Italian ripoff, technically, zombie movies, okay? I'll bring up the most notorious first, which is of course Lucio Fulci, Zombie, or Zombie 2, or Zombie Flesh Eaters. There's it actually was, the title was supposed to be Zombie. But because of Dario Argento called Dawn of the Dead Zombie, they had to call it Zombie 2 in like America, right? In the U.S., right?
Yeah, which is also great marketing to
which
stick
is
it,
so
stick
fucking
it on
weird
the
too,
Dawn
because
of the
there's
Dead.
no connection, and it's just okay. This what would this be, right?
Right.
Like in Europe it was Zombie 2, yeah, because that's
Right.
where Dawn of the Dead was called Zombie,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I've always been a fan of this. I mean, Lucio Fulci is. I would say it's kind of he's kind of an acquired taste. You know what I mean? Because I got into the whole Italian horror scene like just out of high school. You know, I started figuring out, well, there's these Italian horror movies made, Suspiria, Dario Argento. They all kind of tied together. You got into Argento, and then you found out about Fulci. You got into Fulci, and you found out about Argento. Then there's Bava. You go back, and Mario Bava was, you know what I mean? Then there's his son, Lamberto Bava, who made Demons and all that stuff. There's such a little incestuous world with those filmmakers. And I mean, we could go into a whole discussion of just like Fulci's important, I would say important work.
It's four important.
Yeah,
really
what would you say? I'd say Zombie, Gates of Hell, House by the Cemetery. City of the Living Dead, House by the Cemetery, and
The Beyond.
The Beyond is the fourth one that I always forget about. Yes, but Zombie's a great movie. It's a very different. I mean, you get that Italian gore. And Zombie, I think I would say 79, right? I think Zombie is 1979. There's that Italian gore. I mean, they're different zombies. There's an element of the old school voodoo zombies, like we were talking about with I Eat Your Skin and stuff. Like it's almost like they felt like, well, let's try not to do the Romero thing. Let's do zombies, but let's try to bring it back to like what was before Romero. So maybe they're trying not to rip it off so much, which is funny because the movie was kind of made to cash in on the Romero movies.
It was.
But they were trying to do something different. They're like, well, let's just not try to be a complete rip-off of George Romero. You know, on an island with a doctor, kind of like the Mad Doctor scenario, you know. And the gore is just insane in those Fulci movies.
Insane with no budget.
Right.
Like, he used crepe paper on people to make zombies.
But that stuff looks so nasty.
It does.
Like, specifically, I mean, we're talking about zombie movies, and actually since we're talking about zombie movies, we can bring up City of the Living Dead because it is a zombie movie.
It is.
And I mean, to a certain extent, House by the Cemetery, but that's more of a ghost story kind of with a zombie mix. And The Beyond was also a zombie movie. But City of the Living Dead, Gates of Hell as it was known in the United States, is one of the nastiest, goriest like horror movies from that era. Like, that is, like, notorious. Like, if you grew up in that era and that is the movie that you found out about through somebody else, you got to see this fucking movie. Woman puking out her intestines. Like, there's some serious gore. But, like you said, they never had a lot of money to make those movies. And the gore is insanely nasty in those movies.
Right.
Like, and they went for it. And that's what became, like, the Fulci thing. The Fulci thing was he went for it with the gore.
Yeah,
you know?
Argento was art, and Fulci was nasty.
It was just gory. Yes, exactly. Yeah, there was that distinction between the two of them. But, I mean, any thoughts on Zombie specifically?
Oh, yes. I mean, the famous zombie cover art, with the zombie with the maggots in his eye.
The one coming out of the ground, yeah.
Yeah.
Which they did a tribute, and
in The
I
Walking
love
Dead.
Walking Dead, and I picked that out immediately with the
Yeah.
girl when she's sitting there in the zombie. I'm like, that is fucking Zombie. I'm like, that's so awesome.
Yeah, as soon as I saw the hand star, I said, please do it. And
I know, I was excited. I was like, it got me pumped. I was like, yes.
But yeah, I mean, that image, that is the first DVD I ever bought strictly because of the cover art.
The cover art.
Because I saw that, I said, I really have to own
What
this.
is this?
Yeah.
I gotta see what this is.
Yeah.
That's a classic, like, picture, just that zombie image.
Right.
Like, that was the poster art for the movie.
Right.
In certain ones.
And I have that tattooed on me.
You do, yeah.
I do. I just love that. I love that movie so much, and that art. It's just that holds that special place of nastiness in me. But I think it's a really, really well done movie.
It is a really well done movie.
Yeah.
And it's, you could almost say that technically speaking, Zombie is actually kind of made better than some of the early Romero. Like, I wouldn't go as far as Day of the Dead, but, like, when you talk about Night and Dawn, like, it is actually made better than those movies. It's more proficient cinematically. You know what I mean?
I could definitely agree.
It's a
with
different
that.
kind of movie, though. Like, I think, like, you gotta almost have a desire or a flavor for those, like, for those Italian horror movies.
You do, yeah.
Because I think zombie. I would personally think, for me, like a gateway, the gateway drug into Italian cinema is Suspiria and Gates of Hell. Like, if you're going to go with Argento and you're going to go with Lucio Fulci, I think those are like the gateway drugs into those, because they're both so out there that, like, even if you didn't quite like the style, you could get something out of them. And then you kind of delve into their catalogs and they change. I'm not sure that Zombie would be the first movie to show somebody if you're trying to get them into. I don't know. I really don't know. Like, what do you think about that?
I could see it, but Zombie's different because, like, Fulci didn't write it. He had a husband and wife team that wrote it.
Yeah, right.
So it kind of has a different feel than his other movies that he did everything on.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why it feels more linear to me and makes more sense, because Fulci, a lot of movies don't make sense.
Actually, I don't particularly care too much for the movie, but Cat in the Brain.
Yeah.
That movie is batshit crazy and makes no fucking sense whatsoever.
Right.
It's gory and crazy and weird, but, like, I just can't. My brain just can't connect to that movie.
But that's the Italian way.
It is the Italian way.
Argento stuff doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
But he gets by with the colors and the art.
But there's always kind of like with Argento. It's funny, we're having an Argento Fulci debate. This is classic Italian cinema talk. Whereas Fulci kind of used the gore to connect all his movies. It was always about the kind of like the gore centerpieces. Mm-hmm. That's what I think anyway. Argento, like you said, it was the visuals in Argento movies, and his movies a lot of times were just for the visuals. It's almost like, it's really weird to watch a movie where the plot is almost secondary to what you're watching on the screen.
Right, but put this back to what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
In the 70s in Italy, and they made movies like that didn't make a lick of sense,
yeah,
but they were great because the heart was there and the passion was there.
Yeah.
Argento, Fulci, whoever.
Yes.
But then you go back to, we were talking about Sharknado, there's no heart, there's no passion there. Movie doesn't make sense, but it sucks.
That's a really good comparison. You're right. There is no heart or passion in there. It just doesn't matter. And, like, you can go back to, like, even Fulci, which he was called, like, the rip-off artist. Like, they kind of called him the rip-off artist. But everything that he ripped off, quote-unquote ripped off, there is a distinctly Fulci thing about them. Like, he made, you could say that House by the Cemetery was like the Amityville Horror, The Shining. That's what that was inspired by, and that's what they were trying to do, something along those lines. But then it goes into this fucked up weird headspace of, like, Lucio Fulci movies, like that. That's not what it is. It's its own thing entirely. And there's some fucking imagery in House by the Cemetery. It's actually kind of, I mean, I like of those four movies. I mean, I love Zombie. Zombie's a great movie. I think for me, Gates of Hell and City of the Living Dead and House by the Cemetery have always been kind of like my two favorites of that era. House by the Cemetery, for some reason, is just weird to me. I just kind of like the creepy, strange, odd.
It's that fucking kid.
The kid with the hello, daddy, with, like, the voice of a 30-year-old person trying to talk like a kid.
Who's
and
castrated.
They used him in other movies as well, and they always use a very similar person to dub the voice. I don't know if it's the same person or whatnot, but
it's amazing that they would choose that voice to dub.
But Zombie is a great movie, and I really like, City of the Living Dead, which is also a zombie movie. I like The Beyond. To me, The Beyond is the weakest of the bunch. Although I have to watch it again, I haven't seen it in years, and I really did like it. And a weird story about The Beyond is when Grindhouse Releasing did their campaign to get The Beyond back into movie theaters during the day. I remember specifically I wanted to see it so bad that we actually wrote to Grindhouse. We told them about a cinema in our area, and they actually went and got the movie in the cinema in our area.
Wow.
So they were very hands-on with their, like, fans, with the people that, like, talked to them. We actually were somewhat responsible for getting them to play the movie in our area, which was kind of cool. So we were like, we gotta go. It was the Avon Cinema. They played The Beyond at the Avon in Providence. It's a crazy movie, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it again. I kind of want it to come out again because I don't even own a copy of the movie at this point. I had various versions through time. I had the tin there. The Angry
me
tins,
too. Yeah,
and I had that. I don't have that anymore. But I do like that movie. Another movie I just have to bring up because there's so many Italian zombie movies, but I got to bring up Burial Ground because I think it has to be mentioned if we're talking about Italian zombie movies.
You can't no, but this one you can't give away spoilers.
No, we can't talk too much about it. Yeah. Burial Ground was what's his name? Bruno Mattei. Yeah. Which, if Fulci was a ripoff artist, Bruno Mattei was just like, this guy was just, I don't even know where the fuck his mind was. Like, this guy was just, it really was just money making to Bruno Mattei. But wow. Yeah, there's not too much I can even say about it because I don't want to give away too much about. Burial Ground is the name of the movie. AKA Nights of Terror, I guess is the tagline name.
Yeah.
But if you like these like Italian zombie movies, you kind of owe it to yourself. This is the I want to say, this is almost like the Riff Tracks movie. Like if there's a movie to see, so you can just laugh your ass off and just be like, what the fuck is going on in this movie? And it has the zombie element to it. Burial Ground is the movie.
It is. I mean, and the thing is, like, I think the zombies look great. People watch it now on bigger screen TVs and like high def and whatever, and they go, "Oh, the zombies look like shit." Well, that's because of what you're looking at it on.
Yeah, it was, and even in a movie theater. Okay, the thing about it would be like at home when you're watching something in high definition, you take a film print off a movie screen. You take the actual. I mean, you were a projectionist, so you take that. You shrink that down to, we were watching 50-inch, 60-inch screens in some good houses. A lot of people watching on like a 36 or a 40-inch screen is kind of common, I think, now. I think that's a common size for a home. You take a film print and shrink that down, and it's going to look sharp. It's going to look detailed. But you're really going to pick out the details. You're going to see a lot of stuff that, like, blown up on a big screen. It's almost the difference between seeing something really small where you can't, in crappy quality, you can't see too much. You blow it up, it almost has the same effect. Whereas you're not going to notice as much of the weirdness. Like, I think, like, the home TV range now, like from, like, 40 to around 60, that really is the size where you're going to see the defects. It's gonna stand out because it's very clear and it's very in your face. I mean, I'm totally a fan of having, like, being able to watch this stuff at home and almost having your own small movie screen in your house. It's fucking great. I mean, if Jay Byrne of high school Jay Byrne, 17 years old Jay Byrne, with his VHS collection and his like 19-inch like Magnavox, like in his tube TV in his room, watching movies at night, could jump to Jay Byrne now, sitting in his living room covered with movie posters, fucking movies everywhere, friggin' 50-inch screen, like high definition sound and picture. Like, I almost think he wouldn't believe that was real. Oh, there's no way you're gonna. That's fucking. I mean, it's progressed that much, which is pretty friggin' cool. But yeah, Burial Ground is what the Peter Bark is the
Peter Bark is the
kind of the character you almost can't talk about without spoiling the movie, but
he makes the movie.
He played, and the weirdest part of the Peter Bark character is a young child once again. Well, a grown man playing a young child, dubbed by a grown man talking like a young child.
Right.
Like, it's the weirdest fucking combination of strangeness that you could ever. And that movie has, without saying it, I think if you're into zombie movies, just fucking find Burial Ground and watch it. There is just there's that one fucking scene that is like, can't really say anything about. It's just one scene in that movie that is...
There's one scene to start it, and then it, like, there's more scenes like that.
Oh yeah, as it continues, but there's the what starts all that, yeah.
That's the shot. But see, here's the thing, like I said, the zombies look great. But this almost like a Romero, unintentional homage to Romero, is the zombies are kind of secondary, and it's what the fuck happens with the people in this place that just blows your mind.
And without giving away too much, there's almost like, for this movie, almost feels like it was made by a porn filmmaker as opposed to like a horror filmmaker.
It does.
Like, there's a sexualized nature to the way the characters are in this movie. You know what I mean? that like it's just it's crazy.
Yes.
But yeah, so Burial Ground is worth it. There's another movie called Hell of the Living Dead. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yeah.
It's is that what you? Yeah. Okay. Cool. It's another Bruno Mattei movie. Oddly enough, yeah. That's not a bad movie actually either, and that just came out again. I need to kind of give it a. That's another kind of rip-off movie as well. Is
that the one where they're at like a carnival or something?
No.
Oh no, that's actually
that's just a bunch of military people as well. It's kind of got the crazies. It's almost like the crazies, like that movie, because it's like the zombies. It's like they're brought on by this like nuclear fusion like accident at like a plant or something like that. That's pretty cool. I haven't seen that movie in a long time, but there's another Italian zombie movie right there.
And you know, you talk about with that movie, you talk about rip-offs and Bruno Mattei.
Yeah.
That took, to me anyway, that took the head from Dawn of the Dead, the half head there, and like expanded it into a body. That's to me, that's what that looks like.
Yeah, right, totally.
And how many Italian zombie movies use that same art? And like you were buying the same damn movie, like the same artwork on 4 different movies.
Yes. Well, because there was this period of time, and you this is probably when you got into the Italian movies as well, when the DVD market first came around in like the late 90s, like just the beginning of the 2000s, 98 to 2000 or so. The company Anchor Bay, which originally was I want to say, because I was into Laserdiscs as well, it was an offshoot of Elite Entertainment. Well, they got Elite Entertainment stuff to distribute. I don't know if they were connected or not, but Elite Entertainment was like the premier. They started doing all this stuff with Laserdiscs, the special editions for like classic horror movies and stuff. And they did, the Romeros. They did Night of the Living Dead. They did Dawn of the Dead. I had them at the time. They were fucking monstrosities. They cost like $100 a piece. Credit card debt galore back then. And then when DVD first kind of came around and became popular, Anchor Bay became like the horror company, which kind of sucks now because they've branched off and they've changed owners, and they're Stars. They're related with Stars Entertainment now, so it's not. There's elements of horror still with Anchor Bay, but it's not their primary concern anymore. But at that point, they were a Scream Factory of that era. And that's when all these awesome movies started coming out. Hell Night, like a movie called Fade to Black, which I like tons of. There was that was the horror company. That was like all these obscure horror companies that are coming out, almost like the Scream Factory stuff. It was Anchor Bay at that point, which is funny though. There's a lot of different stuff coming out by Scream Factory that wasn't coming out by Anchor Bay. There's differences, but they were the ones that really got me into the Italian horror genre, because they just started releasing all these movies, these Fulci and these Dario Argento movies that you had heard about. Like, if you were a fan of horror, read Fangoria or read Rue Morgue or those magazines, they would pop up in these magazines, and you'd be like, I've never seen this movie, Bird with the Crystal Plumage, and stuff. Like, all these, and they all started coming out. And, like, so it's kind of cool. Like, for me, that's what started I don't know if it was the same for you, but that's what started my Italian horror obsession for a while there.
Yeah, very, very much so. Like,
they had the Dario Argento collection, the Lucio Fulci collection. They were releasing all these movies by them.
Yeah. We had access to it.
Yeah.
Which was unheard of.
Which was unheard of because that stuff was so bootlegged and hard to find in the United States up to that point. Even stuff is I mean Suspiria had come out on home in the States, had come out, Gates of Hell had come out, City of the Living Dead. But it was always the other ones that you wanted to see, the other movies by these filmmakers that you couldn't like I said, Bird with the Crystal Plumage. Like, I'm not a big fan of Cat o' Nine Tails, but Cat o' Nine Tails by Dario Argento. Like, these random ones that like you never get a chance to see. One that I actually really like, it's funny we're getting into Italian horror movie, we kind of got off the zombie, this is all Italian horror, but it all kind of ties together in a weird, crazy way. New York Ripper. Like, that was such a bootlegged movie up until the point when Anchor Bay put that out. It was like, wow, you can see I gotta see the New York Ripper. Right, like, it was one of those notorious movies, Which, and I love the New York Ripper now. That's just a trashy, crazy little fucking movie. To me, New York Ripper is almost like an Italian Dirty Harry movie. Like, that should be a Dirty Harry movie. It is. It totally is. And the killer that quacks like a duck is the craziest fucking shit. It's like, it's so nutty. But, alright. So we've got Hell of the Living Dead, we got Zombie, these are the Italian stuff. We've got Burial Ground. Let's see. I'm sure there's something I'm missing here.
We've got, I don't know if you have it, but if anybody... What?
Are you gonna... Dr. Butcher MD? Is that what you're talking
No,
about?
I wasn't gonna bring that, but
all right.
that should
Zombie
be too.
Holocaust is another one.
Yeah,
That's
Zombie
almost like a ripoff of Zombie, like of Lucio Fulci Zombie. That one. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is Zombie Holocaust is in. If anybody is looking for like a good box set to get some great zombie movies, I got the zombie movie 3-pack. It's called.
Oh, the Shriek Show one that came out.
The Shriek Show one. And if you get the first one, it's only got Zombie or Zombie 2, 3, 4. So you get Zombie in there. That's good. But the second one has Burial Ground.
Yeah.
Zombie Holocaust.
That's how I originally had those because they were in that set. Yeah.
And
what else was in that?
And also was Flesh Eater, which was an American one by
Bill
Bill
movie
Hinzman.
with Bill Hinzman. Yeah,
Yes.
I remember that movie. Yeah.
Which is not bad, but it's kind of really funny. Like
it's
this.
an interesting movie. Definitely.
Yeah. This 3-pack DVD set shows you how disturbing for Burial Ground, disturbing and just horribly disturbing. In the best way, though.
Yeah.
But you've got Zombie Holocaust, where you can see how poorly made and on, you can tell where the budget really suffers. My favorite part of Zombie Holocaust is when they throw the guy off the roof, and it's clearly a mannequin going down, and then when the mannequin person hits the ground, the arm flies off the mannequin.
Yes.
And then they cut back to it, and they get the guy up because he's a zombie.
Yeah.
And he's got his arm. It's fine.
That's great.
And then in that set is Flesh Eater, which is Bill Hinzman from Night of the Living Dead,
Right.
made a movie, and it's not bad for an indie movie, but it's just kind of funny. Like at one point they're going up to this house to knock on the door, and they move the bush aside, and it just like whaps back and faps the guy in the face.
That's
and
great.
Just little stuff like that. So,
I haven't seen this movie in a while. I saw it like once because it was in the set, and I had that set, and I watched it.
Yeah.
And I kind of broke up the set, and I kept like Burial Ground and Zombie Holocaust, and I don't even know. I copy of it somewhere.
Yeah. So you were saying like riff tracks, like that whole set of 3. If you guys can track it down,
That's a riff track
that's
set.
a riff track set.
That's a
yeah.
riff track set. No, totally. Yeah. But I mean, there's so many. I mean, there's so many of these zombie movies, and we'll kind of like end our discussion with The Walking Dead. We'll go into TV a little bit and end it with The Walking Dead. But there also have been like a slew of other movies that have come out, like 28 Days later and 28 Weeks Later, which I liked. Those are almost like they're zombie, but they're infection movies.
Yeah,
like
they're not dead.
They're not the dead zombie movies, exactly. So I mean, we'll talk about The Walking Dead a little bit here, and I think that'll close out. We're getting an hour and 41 minutes. We got a good length going on here. We can talk about The Walking Dead for a little bit. I'm a big fan of The Walking Dead. I remember when it first came on, like season 1 first came on, the whole Frank Darabont thing, because I mean I've always liked Frank Darabont's movies, and as you're a big Stephen King fan, so Frank Darabont and Stephen King, it's almost like hand in hand. He was one of the few people that really could adapt Stephen King to kind of, at least from what I'm aware of by Stephen King. I haven't read too much, but it felt like Stephen King. It really did. With the Shawshank Redemption and The Mist, which I fucking love. The Mist. So season 1 of The Walking Dead was great. I mean, we're going to go season by season and talk about everything. But it was really weird because after season 1, there was a lot of bullshit over Frank Darabont leaving the show because he got fired and all this stuff. And it's really strange how a lot of people were ready to drop on the show and they didn't want to continue with the show. But I almost got to say, I love what Frank Darabont did. He started it. He had a great start. But I got to say, Greg Nicotero right now and the actual writer, Robert Kirkman of The Walking Dead, they're kind of like the showrunners right now, running the show. And I almost gotta say, like, for me, they're almost better. Like I'm totally happy with the direction that the show has gone over its 4-season run.
Yeah, I mean Nicotero's really gotten to spread his wings and
he really has.
Yeah,
like I really think Nicotero's kind of come into his own as like a showrunner, like. Because I know he's done a lot of stuff, but I think this is really the first time he's really gotten a chance to, like, get into story more than even, like, just his effects work. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I love how they try to wrap... They're very Romero in the sense, you can tell they came from the Romero school, where they try to put some history behind their zombies. Like, their featured zombies have a story behind them. There's a history behind them. Like... You can almost tell by looking at it what it went through, and there's like a story behind that. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm a big fan of it. There's a lot of people. I find The Walking Dead, which is fascinating to me, the one show that's on TV now that everybody wants to bash. everybody wants to say how much the show sucks and they don't like it, but they constantly continue to watch it. And everyone says, I don't know if it's a... I've watched it straight through, and maybe because I'm not watching it as it airs, I'm watching it DVD or like, you know, getting my hands on it in other ways. Well, for one of the seasons I did anyway, for season 2. I think the show plays better in blocks. I think if you watch like 2 or 3 episodes in a row, you get to a point where you feel like you can logically stop and then continue. Like, the show works in mini movie blocks. And I can almost see how like a viewer waiting week to week to see the next story could be like, well, nothing's happening for like 3 episodes. Like, it's not that nothing is happening, it's just you're expecting more. Like, there's this whole culture that's like all they want is fucking zombies to rip people apart. They don't want story, they don't want characters. It's like, and these actors are amazing. They're doing amazing work on this fucking show.
Right.
You know, I mean, the 3rd and 4th season really amped it up for the show. I can't, like, people are saying, like, there are people out there, like, majorly in the horror community, like, when you listen to, like, podcasts and stuff like that, who are like, yeah, the show's kind of lost. There's not much left. I mean, I think the show's at, like, its highest point yet. I mean, I don't see, well, there's no fucking end in sight as far as A&E is concerned, because that's, like, their one of the most popular show right now. Like, there's so much merch. They're looking at a spinoff. They gotta, I don't know what the spinoff's gonna be. Do you know anything about that?
From what I read, it's the same world,
yeah,
but it's just
new characters.
All new characters, not in the comic book.
Oh, okay.
And in a different part of the country.
Okay, so that's an interesting way to spin it off. So this way they don't have to even worry about following the comic story. Yeah. They can just go off and do whatever they want. It almost could be overkill. I'm like, I love watching The Walking Dead, but like, if it gets too comic booky, or they have like 5 spin-offs, it's just gonna keep going, like it never ends. But I guess it doesn't. Yeah.
To me, it's. I think it's AMC's idea to have one of the two running all year round.
AMC, not I think I said A&E.
Yeah,
AMC, sorry.
But yeah, when one's on hiatus, then the other one comes in.
Right? So they can constantly have like a Walking Dead thing going on. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so it'd almost be like, they're almost going to become like CSI Miami, CSI Walking Dead Florida, Walking Dead, like, you know what I mean? It's like a kind of thing. But I mean, I'm all for, like, I'm sure it'll be good, like, because I mean, I'm a fan of, I mean, I don't know, what do you have anything to say about
I love it. I mean, I got into the comic maybe around like issue 16.
Yeah, see, I never really read the comic, so this is an interesting perspective on it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I still think the comic's better.
Yeah.
But you know, I always vote for the book. You know.
Yeah, right. Because you're a reader, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But I love the show, and like, you know, you had a really good point with you know how sometimes people will bitch about stuff, and one is just the nature of pop culture now.
It is. Nobody likes anything.
Right. But like you said, it works better to me as a show if you watch. There's no commercials. If you watch a chunk on DVD. And you can watch a chunk and watch the story progress in a different way. 2-3
episodes at a time. I feel it kind of works best when I'm watching it. Yeah.
Right. I think, you know, I watch it weekly because, especially with where I work, if I don't watch it, people are going to ruin it.
Exactly. Yeah. They'll probably talk about it. Yeah.
So I never have to watch Breaking Bad because the whole thing got ruined for me. So,
I've never watched Breaking Bad, although I've heard it's an amazing show. I haven't started watching it yet, and I probably will someday. But I have heard like so much stuff about Breaking Bad, so it's like,
I mean, you know, and like the customers come into my store and they think that we know everything because we see everything because we're pop culture.
Then they tell you the whole fucking story.
Yeah. Oh man, when this happened, like, thanks a lot, asshole.
All right then.
So I gotta watch Walking Dead when it airs. But yeah, the commercials are frustrating. The end of the show cliffhanger is good because it's a cool cliffhanger, but you know, like you want to keep watching it.
And they have a thing too. I've noticed structurally with the show, like they do this because AMC's very interesting in that they almost split their seasons up into 2 parts, where they have their mid-season break and then they go off for a while. And Walking Dead really plays on that, where like they build the character arc up to that moment. And I mean, like because I watched it in a different context because I watched it at home, but I'm aware of how they break up the seasons, so I can say, okay, this is where their mid-season break was. You can tell that mid-season fucking episode in season 4 was like the best fucking TV episode I've ever seen.
It was amazing.
I mean, I don't want to give too much away. I mean, we're talking about The Walking Dead. People, a lot of people have probably seen it if we're talking about it. But in general, the Governor's Return. And I really loved how they went off and did like 2 episodes that like just brought his story back into the fold. You watched him become a person again, and then they tied it back into the people at the fucking prison. And it was like Rick and all the rest of them. I'm like, wow. And that fucking episode was, I mean, I won't give away the major spoiler in the episode, but like, wow, man. I was like, holy shit. Me and Katie were watching, this was just a couple weeks ago, and we got to that episode, but like, this is fucking heart-wrenching. Like, that's what that one thing that show does so well, because you really like those characters. Like, that's the Romero thing with the characters, big time in that show, is you really feel for the characters that you're watching on that show. And I know it's every season it's like, who's gonna die this season? It kind of becomes that with modern TV shows anyway. But they do thwart that in a small way, in that they know that's what people are going to expect. However, you don't expect the severity of the consequences of the characters that you're going to get thrown in your face.
Right.
Like, they throw such devastating human drama in your face on that show that it's like, I mean, without telling too much, just like when they get out of the prison in season 4, and just Carl and Rick leaving, and there's something that happens, and they think somebody is dead, which they don't know, of course, and they see it, and it's such a huge moment in the show. But like, the emotion those 2 fucking actors put on, like, when they were leaving, man, I'm fucking quivering mess here watching this show. I'm going, Jesus Christ, this is horrifying. Like, they don't just get out of that prison, they get fucking tormented out of that prison.
Right.
You know. But I think that's what that show does so well.
Right.
When it builds to those moments are so worth the build up that like you're like, okay, yeah, this is worth the build.
Right. They jerk with your emotions, and for all the people who are bitching about it and just want the zombies, they keep coming back to the show because of the emotion, whether they know it or not.
Yeah. Why would you watch it otherwise? Why would you just like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I don't know.
Right. I mean, all those people that are bitching about it are still watching it.
Yeah.
And that's because AMC has them. It has them emotionally invested, whether they'll admit it or not.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I'm dying to see like the beginning of season 5 now.
Right.
Like, I'm like, where is this going? And you know what's really interesting that I found? You watched now, and this isn't giving anything away. This is just a weird little detail that I'm curious about. You saw season 4 when it aired on TV. Did they censor Rick's dialogue on television? Did he say screw with the wrong people? Because on the Blu-ray, on the DVD, he's like, they fucked with the wrong bunch of people.
Right.
But when it aired on television, was it screw?
Yeah, it was screw.
Even on the first night? Like, I was thinking maybe they let him get away with it on the first night. Oh, okay, so that is like an... But I love the fact that they put it that way. Like, they let it be that on the thing. They didn't use, like, the television version. I'm like, that last line of season 5, I'm like you're watching a fucking broken group of people. So it's like, how is this going to play out? Like, it's going to be... I was reading an article in like, it's like Entertainment Weekly or something like that. They were talking about... this isn't without giving any spoilers away, because it doesn't really tell you anything. They specifically said, they're like, they know a lot of families watch this show with their kids. They're like, season 5 is a grown-up season. Right. They're like, our characters are broken. They're beaten down. They're like... The first, they said, 6 minutes of the season 5 finale is going to be some of the most intense television ever put on TV. They're like, it is horribly intense, the first like couple of minutes.
Of the opener?
Of the opener of season 5. Now, I don't know too much about it because I don't read the comics, but I do know there's a reference to cannibals or something to do with the people in that Terminus place. This is a cannibal element. They don't even really bring that up, but it's known because people who read the comics kind of have laid that out there.
Yeah, in the comic there was a cannibal story arc, which has nothing... There was no Terminus in the comic.
There is no Terminus in the comics. No. Okay, that's interesting. Okay.
No. Which, there's thoughts that that'll turn into something else from the comic. But there was a cannibal storyline in the comic. But you can kind of tell that maybe these guys are the cannibals in Terminus because there's like little... If you watch it real close, there's evidence in the background. Like human bones and whatever.
Really? Okay. I didn't really pick up on that the first time around. I'm kind of rewatching it. I'll pay attention more to that when I get to that episode now.
Yeah, I mean, see, but that's the thing. Like I'm luckily, like me as a viewer, I'm able to separate the comic from the book. I'm not like, well, they didn't do this in the comic. I don't care.
You don't care. You're just watching the story arc.
Yeah, I can read the comic if I want the comic.
Which is actually good because I would think that would be a bit dull if you were into the story and you were reading the comic and watching the show. You'd just be getting the same damn story repeated to you. Like, it's kind of nice that they're going... And I like the fact that Robert Kirkman is very much the writer for almost every single episode now. Like
he writes some of the episodes, yeah.
Most of them are written by... You see a lot throughout the season, like the major ones. He's kind of one of the major writers on the show now.
He's very hands-on, and you don't find that a lot, you know.
No, and that's the creator, one of the creators of the comic book. Isn't it him and somebody else who created the comic book, or he's the main creator of the comic?
Yeah, the other creator was the artist, and they split ways, and there's a new artist.
So Robert Kirkman was the story creator.
Yes.
He wrote
his story.
the comics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, they did a lot of Walking Dead comics. My sister reads them, too. She said that there's a lot, right?
Yeah, they're into the 130s now.
Wow.
Yeah. And, like, you know, like, again, there's so many differences. There's characters that are alive on the show that aren't alive in the comic.
Now, this priest character that they're going to introduce, this Gareth something, is he from the comics as well?
He's from the comic,
okay.
yeah. Gabriel is his name.
Gabriel, sorry. Yeah. The actor's name is Gareth something, I think. That's why I said that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and, like, when you see the similarities, you go, that's awesome. When you see the differences, I still go, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like the Governor was a lot different.
Was he?
But I like both versions. The Governor in the comic was way more brutal, if you can even believe that.
Really? Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh man, he did some stuff.
Some fucking dark shit.
Wow.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But you know, like he does stuff that you go, they can't show that on TV.
Now I got a question for you, and this is the Governor in season 4. The Governor's like kind of return storyline, was that actually a comic book story, or was that just something created for the TV show? Because it feels like that was like a separate comic story. Like
they actually, not completely, but they took elements of that Governor backstory from the novels that they put out.
Oh, okay.
They put out a trilogy, well, a 3, which actually turned into 4 books because the last part was split into 2. But they did a Governor novel series.
Okay.
That told who he was up until the point where you meet him, at least in the comic book.
Oh, okay. All right.
So, you know,
so there's elements of that in his like 2-episode backstory arc from the thing he did in 4, because that felt like, to me, like it felt comic booky, like where, like, you know, you've got this story and then it'll break off for a couple comics and go into a different story and then meet back up with the previous story.
Yeah.
Like that felt that way to me. I don't know. For me, I think the show, my 2 right now, and I've watched, I mean, we're just talking about shows. We're probably about almost close to finished here, but like, I watched Bates Motel. I've watched all these modern horror TV shows. I haven't seen Hannibal. Have you seen Hannibal?
I've not seen Hannibal.
I hear Hannibal is actually really good. However, I only have so much attention for TV shows. I really do. It's like they just keep putting out more. There's an Evil Dead TV show in the works, which has Bruce Campbell, and I may have to watch it just because Ash is going to be in it. I don't know. But who knows what that's going to turn out to be. If it even happens.
The Strain's really good.
Oh, was The Strain good?
Yeah,
have you watched The Strain?
yeah.
I haven't seen The Strain. I hear The Strain is really good. That's Guillermo del Toro, basically his show, right?
Yeah.
Which I just, oddly enough, really kind of random. I never really saw much Guillermo del Toro. I've actually become getting into his stuff. I finally got a chance. I picked up The Devil's Backbone, and then it made me want to watch Pan's Labyrinth. And I saw this because those are very companion piece movies, those 2 movies. And I really enjoyed both of those movies.
It's heavy.
I want it heavy. Man, fucking Pan's Labyrinth is so much heavier than I expected that movie to be. That movie builds to an ending that is just so heartbreaking, and like it's like, wow, this is, and it's got the fantasy element, but it's kind of a real like war story, and it's like I didn't expect what I got from that movie, and I really liked it. It really did. Now, Kronos, I haven't seen that in a while. Does that movie hold up very well?
It does.
It does? I gotta watch it again then, because I saw it a long time ago before I was really into any of his movies, and now I'm kind of getting into the Guillermo del Toro thing, so I'm like kind of going out and finding his movies. So I want to pick up Kronos now and see it again. But I mean, I love Devil's Backbone. I loved fucking Pan's Labyrinth. I love both of those movies, and I kind of want to see Pacific Rim too. I hear that's actually a pretty good movie. I don't know.
I didn't see it.
You didn't see it? You didn't
No.
see Pacific Rim? I hear it's a decent movie, but anyway, that's off the subject matter. But we're talking the TV show element. We were talking about. I've seen Bates Motel. Bates Motel's not a bad show. I actually like it. It's by the end of the first season, it kind of it falls into very typical TV series formula. I don't know if you seen it.
I've not seen it.
All right, I won't say anything, but it falls into like TV series formula. It just starts. The show starts to get really good, and then it just starts to become like, okay, I see what they're doing. They're gonna drag these stories out forever. You're never gonna fucking find out what's going on. They're gonna, and Walking Dead does that too. But like, they give you enough. I mean, it's a TV show, but it feels different to me. I don't know, just the way their stories are structured feels different. American Horror Story, actually, which I did not like when I first watched it. I watched most of season 1 and I kind of hated it when I first watched it. One of my close friends, Peter, basically said, you gotta watch season 2, Asylum. Like he said, don't worry about it. Watch season 2 first, because they're all different. Each season's a completely different story. They say that they are randomly referencing going into season 3 and 4. Like there's a mention of a character from another season, but it's literally like how we mention the fucking pentagram in like our movies. Like, you know what I mean? It's just a quick little reference, like how Stephen King does with Castle Rock. You know, well, this happened in this town. This is happening in this town, type of thing. Asylum was so fucking cool. Like that was the craziest TV I mean, where The Walking Dead is the most devastating TV I think I've ever watched for a television show. It's really fucking human drama to the max. But like season 2 of fucking American Horror Story is the craziest, weirdest thing you would ever see, and it builds to the most awesome conclusion I've ever seen on a TV show. And I'm like, and it's great because it's contained. It's like 13 episodes, and that's the story. And you watch the whole story. It's like a miniseries. You watch it from the beginning to the end. There's a million fucking characters and a million things going on. It kind of has a fast style. But at season 2, I almost feel like season 2 is better to start with Asylum now that I did that. And then I went back and rewatched season 1 because I bought season 2, and then I'm like, well, I like this show now, so I want to see season 1 again. And I finally finished the season 1, which is called Murder House. It doesn't actually call season 1, just says American Horror Story, but their story was called Murder House for season 1. How season 2 is called Asylum, season 3 is called Coven. Like I haven't seen 3 yet, but that's like my new favorite TV show. That and The Walking Dead for me. Like I don't need anything else. Those 2 shows cover the gamut of fucking horror as far as I'm concerned. The other shows are okay. They're not bad, but like, you know, I'm a movie person. I watch movies all the time. I've only got so much time to squeeze in TV shows. You know what I mean? So, but onto The Walking Dead, and we'll kind of like wrap this up with The Walking, because we're just over 2 hours now.
I have a challenge at the end for you too.
Okay, good. Okay, cool. So your final thoughts on The Walking Dead? We'll finish that. That'll be the end of our zombie talk, I guess. We'll end with The Walking Dead.
Final thoughts is you know, roll on, because this show has what TV needs. You know, you take away the horror aspect, just look at it as entertainment, as art.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so rife with human emotion in the apocalypse. I mean, it's just, it brings out everything that's right about it. And a lot of that, like you mentioned Darabont leaving and all that drama with AMC, but a lot of that, the ship staying on course thing, because they went through a couple showrunners after him.
They did in the second season, yes. The second season almost feels like it changes styles a little bit, but it never felt so disjointed to me that it never felt like that different of a show. It's not like it went so different that it became something completely different.
No, it was always enjoyable. And they keep doing different things, and they keep trying new things and stretching out. They did a lot of like kind of flashbacky things last season that were really good.
Yeah.
They tried it, and it was really good.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that really, you know, the ace in the hole for The Walking Dead that kept it going all this way is Galen Hurd.
The producer,
executive producer. I mean, she's done so much
stuff. Yeah, she's one of these like Hollywood producers that's been involved in so much shit.
Right,
like,
and you know, she's not, you know, she's Hollywood, but she's not Hollywood in a bad way.
No. She's
she
like a
understands.
Kathleen, what's her name there? The Spielberg lady, Kathleen. Something.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Absolutely.
I can't think of her last name right now off the top of my head, but yeah. But she's like that. She's like one of these people that you can tell have worked with good directors and actually give a shit about story and content and film and characters. She's almost more. Galen Hurd is more from the film world,
right?
So that's what's kind of fueling, I think, The Walking Dead is. To me, The Walking Dead feels like a movie that just keeps going on and on. It doesn't feel like a TV show to me. It feels, maybe that's because I watch it in large chunks too, but it doesn't. And that's the same thing with, for me, I thought the American Horror Story kind of did the same thing, is where it felt like a movie, not a TV show. And I mean, Sopranos is a great show, and that kind of had cinematic elements. And there's a million shows that are great like that. I'm sure Breaking Bad is an amazing show. But, like, I don't know. There's just something about the world of The Walking Dead. Maybe it's because I'm a huge fucking Romero fan. Like, you know what I mean? That Walking Dead zombie world, I can live in that fucking world forever. I can just they can keep fucking going with that world. And I mean, as long as the actors are good and the storylines are good, I don't mind. I'll keep watching in that world. I mean, I don't get bored with the fact that they're just roaming around in the woods all the time. I'm always like, okay, where are they going to now? What's next? It's a very freeing formula that they kind of have.
Right.
Because they just roam around and end up someplace. You know what I mean? Where is this taking us? You know what I mean? But, yeah. So I'm a big proponent of The Walking Dead. And I think people who may have kind of dropped off on it maybe around the second season or so, because there are a lot of them that people kind of gave up on it around the second season during all the turmoil with the writers and Frank Darabont and stuff like that. I think you really need to kind of reevaluate, get to the third season, and go forward from there, because third and fourth season, those 2 seasons made me like a lifer. Like, I will watch this show for as long as it airs. Like, you know what I mean? And I love True Blood. I watched that show for a while, but that show really lost it at a certain point. That show never had that point though where I'm like, I gotta watch the next season. This show makes me, I gotta see what's happening next with these characters. I love these characters, you know?
Right.
But yeah, so that's that. So, anything else you want to say, Mike?
Yeah, I want to challenge.
Your challenge. What's the challenge?
So, and I'll go first because I already have my answer. So we talk about zombie films. Think of a zombie film that's kind of not big and popular that you can recommend to your listeners.
Okay. Yeah, I got to think about this for a second.
Yeah.
Not a super. Not one. Does it have to be not one of the ones that we mentioned, or something different than that?
Yeah, something that we haven't mentioned.
Something that we haven't talked about.
That most people don't even really know about. But
Okay.
you go, okay, try this if you like zombie movies.
All right, yeah, that's a good thing. I don't think. See, I come back to the infection movies again, which are kind of zombie movies.
It's the family,
but kind of not as well, and it's still in the same vein as it's Romero as well. The Crazies. I think The Crazies is a good one. That if you haven't, because there is a connection to his zombie universe, the way it's structured, and it is a zombie movie to a certain degree. Oh God, yeah, I wasn't prepared for your challenge.
I know. I threw it at you.
I know, this is a good
one. Beforehand.
I'm sure there's something way better that this Crazies is a great movie. Don't get me wrong. Well, what's your?
All right, yeah, I'll throw mine at
let me
you.
think while you talk yours.
My pick is Dead Air.
Ooh.
Which, have you seen Dead Air?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I should bring it over for you.
Oh, great.
Dead Air stars Bill Moseley and Patricia Tallman, who was in Savini's Night of the Living Dead remake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, yeah. All right.
Which was excellent.
I enjoy that. I really liked it. I like that version.
Yeah, me too. And it was directed by Corbin Burnson from L.A. Law, Major League.
Yeah.
You know, the comedy actor. Yeah. But no, it's a really good a zombie movie. Bill Moseley is a DJ, a radio DJ, and you know he's on the air when it all happens. It's kind of like I didn't see the movie that they
Pontypool, which
yeah.
I never saw, but the plot sounds like what I read about Pontypool.
Yeah, it's almost like an American version. I guess I haven't seen Pontypool either, but that's what happens, and you know. And Patty Tallman's with him in the station, and you know it's about what they have to do to survive, and you know, and move
Dead
on.
Air, okay,
yeah, Dead Air.
Cool.
It's and you know Moseley, Moseley can act. A lot of people, you know, kind of see him as over the top with Chop Top and
Otis,
or whatever. But he can act his ass off, and he proves it right here.
I think he showed it in The Devil's Rejects. I think in The Devil's Rejects he showed that he could go a little further away from that campy thing,
Right,
and
right.
and pull a serious role,
Right.
And cool.
And here, he's not playing a killer when he's playing, a human like you and me, and
cool.
and he just knocks it out of the park.
Awesome.
So the effects are a little meh, like the makeup and stuff on some of the zombies, because it is a real low budget movie.
Yeah.
But it's got a lot of heart, and it's got a good story and great acting.
Cool. I just thought of a good one. Actually, you saying that made me think of another movie that, because the titles were similar. A movie that I think I turned you on to, Dead and Buried.
Yeah.
Which is a different kind of zombie movie, but it is a zombie movie.
Mm-hmm.
It fits into the zombie movie genre totally. And I think Dead and Buried. I don't know, I'm not giving too much away, but it's a cool movie about a small town and weird shit happening with all the inhabitants of the town. You like that movie, right?
I loved it.
That was a great movie.
Yeah.
And it's just got a really cool feel. I think it was either directed or written by Dan O'Bannon, the guy who did like Return of the Living Dead.
Return of the Living Dead.
He's well known in the horror scene. So I mean, if you haven't seen Dead and Buried, I think it's a cool like little 80s gem that and I think it kind of fits into the zombie genre. It does. It is a. I mean, I'm sure there's like a million other ones that I'm probably not thinking of. As soon as we stop talking, I'm gonna come up with other ones.
I know. I mean, we didn't even talk about Return of the Living Dead.
We didn't talk about Return of the Living Dead, which is a complete like a classic.
And that was the first zombie movie I ever saw.
Really? Return of the Living Dead?
Yeah, when I was a little kid.
Well, that's
on
awesome.
VHS, yeah.
That's fucking cool,
Yeah,
man.
my mom rented it for me and my sister to watch.
That's hilarious. And there's like nudity in it and
It
stuff.
is. Oh, I was so happy. I was like 8 years old. Oh, it was
yes. But yeah, okay. I guess that's it. Oh wow, 210, man. We've been rattling on.
It's a good subject.
It is. I mean, there's still more. You bringing it up, and there's like, oh, there's more, and we could just keep going and going and going. But like, I think we laid some pretty good groundwork. I think the Romero movies are good groundwork to start. I mean, and if you love if you get into the Romero movies, I can't imagine anyone who likes Romero movies not getting obsessed with The Walking Dead.
Right.
I mean, because they're very much in the same universe. You got Greg Nicotero, who's working on this. He worked on with George Romero as well. There's that connection, the K&B connection and stuff. And and the fault and all the Italian stuff and The Walking Dead and so much fucking zombie movies. There's so many. But those I think are real bricks in the foundation of what the zombie movie is. Mm-hmm. But yeah. So thank you for listening. As always, Roadkill Entertainment is our thing. If you want to check out Roadkill Entertainment, you can go to jburn75.wix.com/Roadkill Entertainment. You can check us out on Facebook, www.facebook.com/Roadkill Entertainment, and check out our stuff too. And you can, get other episodes of the podcast if you're just turning in to this as new and you just kind of found out about it or whatnot. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this episode, and say goodbye, Mike.
Goodbye, everybody.
And we'll see you next time. Oh, we'll talk to you next time. You won't really see us, but all right, take it easy.